Yeah.
Can I share?
Yeah.
Okay.
So control your video from this side.
She's playing her own video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, then she has to stop.
See, we can
The
still
presentation
see her
is out-
screen.
The presentation is outside. Then she has to stop sharing the presentation.
Do we have them?
Yes, we have the presentation.
Can she hear us? Yeah.
We can't because we can't show the presentation and show her.
Should
at
I
the same
stop
screen.
sharing?
Yeah, because we didn't see the presentation when you shared, so I don't know what the issue is.
It's currently playing from my side when I share.
Yeah.
Okay, let me stop sharing.
Hatuioni.
Does she have the rights of sharing?
She did.
Yeah, I could share. So I actually select share. And what I see is share sound optimized for video sharing. Then there's a third option that shows, it says share Zoom windows. So I'm not sure if I need to tick that.
For sharing, that's okay. The issue we don't know is why we can't see it on our side. It's playing on your side, but it's not displaying on ours.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. You already made it possible. And she's the only one sharing. I'm not. So it's okay.
Do you want me to?
Can we stop sharing and share again? Then we see if it works.
Okay.
Why is it not working?
It's telling me she was sharing something.
Yeah. And instead of us seeing that, we are seeing this. What if we're supposed to be seeing her?
Can you see it?
The screen is still blank.
Share something to her and see.
Okay. Let me share something with you and you tell me whether you can see it. So stop sharing so that I can share from my side.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Yeah, so the problem is ours. Let's figure that out. What is it? Okay, how? Settings is
If you are, if she needs to be. That's what the present.
how do we fix that? Because
Venice text. Do you have Venice's text?
I can't when I am doing all of this. Someone else has to do it.
Okay, let me ask Debbie.
Okay, let me stop sharing. Let's figure this out because I think you don't have the rights to present, and that's an issue. Let's ask Vanessa and then we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Stop. You can just stay online and then we will connect as soon as we can do that.
I don't have, but let me ask someone. Yeah. So let me ask.
Hi. Good morning.
Nice to
See you.
You shared my video, could not open, and I gave you.
It's okay. We have it. We have it
Yes.
in the flash drive.
Embedded.
It might not play because of the network. If it doesn't, we have a backup.
And then you.
We will just download. We will play from the flash drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I want to give you the slide deck. I want to give you this. We put it there and then because now this is what you will help me do on my slides. But now I want to make one change that someone suggested I should do. And I don't know whether I'll be able to find it.
I'm just asking her.
There's someone whose name we have. No, not this one. Welcome, welcome. Morning, hi.
Sorry.
Welcome. You look like very able. Hello, hi. How are you feeling today? I forgot to check up. Yeah. So many.
I'm good. I'm good.
Great. Hi.
How are you doing?
Good. That this is all I need to do. I needed to change that name.
Yeah.
So, I'll save it.
Again,
Mhm.
yesterday,
Mm.
cloud was really so. So.
We have started and we have, oh, we left.
You can stop making.
That will start meeting now. Our Monday, yeah, we can leave.
Yeah. So this one is. Because of the presentations first, maybe you can hold, you hold me to get to it, and then if I take a yeah.
Okay, I'll have all the time.
So you be accurate with the time and you can be straight. I'll tell Rama that I want to come pictures. Yeah. Yeah. 5, 3, 2, 1. Yeah.
Oh, you have a copy.
Why did they give us this small?
But it seems like the issue is about her time. Because I know it's worried.
But it can be a sandwich.
Yeah. I mean, it's pity that we maybe don't give it a chance to. Can we ask Caroline as well to start?
Yeah, we did. We did it here.
Okay, okay, so it's on our side.
Two things. One, panelists wanna get in there.
Yeah.
Wakati wa panel, na panel naanza 10:55, watu wanne, alafu kuna panel naanza 9:45. Watakapoweka hapa, songeshe watu. So at some point, sijui kama tunaweza zima.
Now the question is this. The focus, so at that time, they be schedule camera. Just
So just check her.
Yes.
So shape blank.
Now on
Panelists it
the
open.
share point. I have
Yeah, and then so. Yeah. That's
It's
the
for all.
a presentation or jump or flash.
Sawa,
The
that's-
device is not like this.
Sasa, now.
Yeah, I asked Rachel to go and find chairs. We can? I think we can bring chairs sometimes.
No, I actually called someone right now and they tell me they can't move chairs from room
Okay.
to room. It's
I checked
unfortunate.
Rachel again, maybe.
Unfortunately, we can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
Even us a bigger one. Oh my God, we have very few minutes left. So Ojong can't present, can't share.
Oh.
So we are trying.
Yeah, just really.
Should I share again? Should I try sharing?
Yes, you can. Yes, please try to share again. or change the device? No, it's not working on our side. So either you try
Can
to
you
change.
see?
No, it's all gray basically. So either you try with another device or we'll download your presentation and share from here. That would be the alternative.
But I did send my presentation, and I
Yeah.
remember Carolina, it's downloaded and she has a copy, but she still can't share from that side. So I'm not sure what's happening.
Yeah, we can share from this side.
Can you share the presentation, the video from your side?
Yeah, we'll try and but they're saying they already tested, right? Yeah, so and it's working from our side, so that would be the alternative.
So maybe you try.
Yeah,
So maybe
we
try
can do that.
to try to
Share
play
from-
from the side and let's see
Okay,
if it
perfect.
goes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4. Check 1.
Can you next slide? Yeah. You're welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Are you there? Great. Good to see such an amazing turnout, especially on the last day of Science Week. Very impressive. You know what? Give yourselves a round of applause for lasting this long. Really great to have you all with us. This is a merged session looking at gender and social inclusion, specifically around transformative solutions for gender equality in climate-affected food, land, and water systems. It's one of those merged sessions combining different submissions by CGIAR and our partners. And so we're really happy to have so many diverse speakers here today. The aim of the session is to showcase this vast selection of really innovative gender transformative approaches, solutions, not only in terms of the research, but also how they have resonated with partners, how they've been taken up, and the impact that they have had. And the idea is that we want to also learn from different countries, learn from different experiences across sectors. So I personally am really excited to hear about all this amazing research that has been done so far with partners. What we'd like you to do as well is to share in all of this with us. We have a whole variety of presentations, fireside chats, panel discussions, some amazing videos as well. So it's going to be quite a diverse session. It is very packed. So I'm going to ask all of our speakers to please keep to time, because anything that we do in the first session, any delays will cause a ripple effect on the others. So let's please keep to time, and let's have some fun with this session. I'd like to then ask our first speaker, before we load the slides, I'd like to ask our first speaker, Dr. Susan Currier. There you are, hiding in the back. Please give her a round of applause. Dr. Susan is the director of the African Women in Agricultural Research and Development Award, and she will open and set the scene for us. Thank you so much, Susan.
I need some speaking points. Good morning, everyone. Wow. I feel a lot of energy in this room. My job is very easy, just to make some opening remarks. As you've heard, I am the director for Award. Award is the African Women in Agriculture Research and Development program, and we are a program hosted at the World Agroforestry Center. So, first of all, let me welcome you all here, and let me thank the organizers for inviting me. And I think this is a really interesting session. Actually, I wish they gave us a bigger room, no? Yes. Nonetheless, I think the CGIAR Science Week is a really important platform for us to showcase the cutting edge research that we do on gender and social inclusion in agri-food systems, the work that we do as CG, as well as with our partners. And it's important to note that why this is important is because emerging evidence shows that the gender gaps in agri-food systems continue to persist. And in fact, they are widening due to climate change. So in 2023, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations produced a report. It was actually the first report since the first one in 2011. So about 12 years later, they produced a report, and the report was looking at the status of women in agri-food systems, highlighting, number one, the important role that women play in agri-food systems, but also the gender gaps that persist. So let me highlight some of those, some of the key highlights from that report, just so that you can see there's evidence why this is an important area. first of all, what the report does, which is really important, it highlighted the important role that women play. That agri-food systems are also really important for the livelihoods of women and men, but more so for women. The report also highlighted the employment in agri-food systems, its importance. And for example, in sub-Saharan Africa, we have 71% of working women are employed in agri-food systems compared to 66% of men. Other evidence shows that up to women make up 49% of the agricultural labor force. So really huge. We must take them into account because they are contributing substantially. However, despite the importance of agri-food systems, they face substantial challenges and barriers. So when we look at access to land, input, services, financial services, digital technology, all very key in agri-food system, women's access continue to lag substantially behind men's. When we look at employment in agri-food systems, we find that women's roles tend to be marginalized. Their working conditions poorer than men's. They tend to be in the informal sector. They tend to be the low-skilled, labor-intensive roles, often earning less than men for similar work. The report also highlights the gaping gender gap in food insecurity. We have lots of statistics that show countries in Africa, such as Eastern Africa, Central Africa, are really lagging behind in that respect. In terms of land rights, most countries do not have the legal frameworks that provide adequate protection for women's land rights. And then, of course, the thing that we've been talking a lot about, it's unpaid domestic and care work, where we find women bear the larger percentage of the burden. When we talk about climate change, and one of the sessions here is around climate change, we find that women in agri-food systems are at highest climate risk, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, and that shocks and stresses have a greater impact on women than men, and their ability to cope to shocks and their resilience to stress is actually shaped by existing gender inequalities. The report highlighted very clearly that gender inequalities in agri-food systems are systematically embedded in the social institutions, the rules, and the gender norms, and that the root causes of gender inequalities are discriminatory social norms, attitudes, and beliefs. And of course, the rigid gender roles that obviously affect what roles men and women have within agri-food systems. So together with partners, we are also producing an Africa-specific report that will even give us much more targeted recommendations for sub-Saharan Africa. So what are we going to do about it? We need to develop strategies to address the structural barriers to gender inequality, but to do that, it's going to require innovative, gender transformative interventions that can foster systemic change in the systems, because we need to address not only the symptoms, we need to address the root causes of gender inequalities. What we are finding out is that multidimensional programs that can tackle multiple constraints at the same time, but also work at different scales and in different domains are going to be key to providing meaningful and systemic change in the system. Such multidimensional programs for transformative change are going to require us to collaborate better. They're going to require partnerships. They're going to require policy action, and they're also going to require research. So with an eye toward how they can shape future research agendas, with an eye to how we can shape future research agendas, the CGIAR gender researchers and their partners in this side event are going to showcase and discuss new evidence and co-designed innovative solutions for enhancing gender equality and boosting climate resilience. This side event is organized around 3 sessions. that are structured around 3 very critical and interconnected themes. The first session highlights gender, climate change, and resilience nexus, and it showcases decision-making tools to identify where challenges to gender equality are in terms of gender equality, climate change, and resilience. And also it's going to showcase some innovative solutions for gender responsive and climate smart action. The second session will present findings, will present and discuss findings on applying gender transformative approaches. And it will highlight how these types of approaches can change and challenge discriminatory gender norms, and will really show how we can create lasting change. The third session will focus on innovative ways to strengthen women's leadership and inclusive governance, which is of course very critical for supporting women and other excluded groups, but it will also highlight how women and these excluded groups can be agents of change and foster policy innovation. This side event gives us an opportunity to consider the potential of evidence-based and co-designed gender transformative solutions, not only to enhance the effectiveness of agricultural development, but also to empower the communities to thrive. The journey towards equitable food, land, and water systems is not solitary. It's a collective endeavor for all of us, and it's going to require partnerships, investment, and a shared commitment to change. So finally, I would like to end with a call to action. And my call is, we need to commit to investing in and scaling gender transformative interventions and enhancing partnerships to co-create a future where equality, sustainability, resilience are not just aspirations, but true realities. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Susan Currier, Director of Award. I must say, in the report that she referred to was presented at the International Women's Day at the ILDI campus. It was quite sobering for me because I thought, oh gosh, still so many problems. Have we moved the dial? You know, but actually I'm really encouraged by this session and the work that the Gender Impact Platform has helped to coordinate globally. So, which brings all this amazing work together today. So I just also want to recognize Nicolene. I know you might not be here for the whole session, but Nicolene Dehaan, who is the director of the Gender Impact Platform and moving into the JC Accelerator as well, really provided that kind of catalyst, right, for bringing gender and socially inclusive experts together around this cause. Okay, so as Dr. Susan mentioned, we will in a minute start our first session, but I'd like to first start with a Menti poll, if that's okay. And I'd like you all to participate, please, to get us started in our interactive discussions. In 1 or 3 words, how would you describe transformative solutions for gender equality and social inclusion? Can you all see the QR code? So you can either scan the QR code or go to www.menti.com and use the code 35318184 and share with us how would you describe transformative solutions for gender equality and inclusion. Let's see what comes up. Okay, some interesting ideas already that we will no doubt be discussing today. Inclusive listening, financial support, power shifts, voice, essential. Structural systems, dismantling patriarchy, diverse, being disruptive, a little bit risky, innovative. Good. Anything else? There's only 14 responses, and I know there's more than 14 people in the room. How would you describe transformative solutions? Anyone else? Okay, well, I think that sets us off on a good path anyway, but please do keep sharing your ideas because this is the focus of today. I'd like to now introduce the first session, which, as Dr. Susan said, is really about climate change. And this is not only about how we develop inclusive climate smart agriculture, but it's also about how we design and perhaps even implement these kinds of socio-technical innovation bundles, as they call it, that's a mouthful, in an inclusive manner. Oh, there we go. Now you're talking to me. Thank you. That's really great. I'd like to, there are two speakers for this session, the first session. One that will focus on the severity of vulnerabilities as a result of climate change, talking about and showing, I think, an interactive map. And the second is really looking at how this kind of bundling approach helps to facilitate women's resilience to climate change. So with that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, if that's okay. She is my colleague, Dr. Charity Osei Aponza. She is a senior regional researcher at the International Water Management Institute based in our West Africa office, and she's also our deputy country representative for IMI's office in West Africa. So with that, Charity, you're ready to go.
We want to show a video first. Helen and we will show a video first.
One of the problems the farmers encounter in this area is the issue of climate change, mainly low rainfall, very erratic. The seasonality is not predictable. Soil water contents are also very low. They also have challenge with these types of seeds to grow in this dryland area, especially during at this time of climate change, on how to grow these crops.
Kitambo, ile changamoto wa mama walikuwa wakipitia. Tulikuwa tunafanya kazi mzito. Hatukuwa na ujuzi wa kupanda, hatukuwa tunajua kuchagua mbegu, hatukuwa tunajua ile spacing ya kupanda. Tulikuwa tunapanda tu kwa sababu mvua imenyesha, wewe panda shamba yako, ungojee Mungu.
Kwa mama hawawezi fanya decision making. Mambo kama ya tumelima na tunataka kuuza hizi crops, lazima uulize. Na akiuza peke yake, hataleta hiyo pesa kwa mboma, itumike na familia yote. Saa zingine huwa wamama tunahitaji loans tufanye projects zetu. Kama hauna land ownership kama title deed, itakuwa changamoto kubwa sana. Kama Ustawi is a regional project, which is mainly dealing with climate change resilience. And its main objective is to diversify and intensify the farming systems, especially the maize farming systems. We diversify them so that the farmers can be resilient in the climate change and also help get more diversified diets. There's a lot of collaboration between UU and HAPLUS. We work together as a team. And as we do the demos in the field, we have given them different trainings on gender-sensitive nutrition. So we have been working together hand in hand on diversifying the cropping system as well as the diets and the nutrition. We also encourage them to do the decision-making together, such that when they're deciding on what to do on their farm, they have to do it as a family, as a household. We normally have the mother demos in a specific area. In that mother demo, both the men and the women are invited to come and learn there. So when they're doing the learning, they do the work together, they learn together, and that one brings the men to the group. We also have field days where we normally call everybody in the locality, both men, women, young, old, and that brings the men together. At least they know what is happening and they go to practice in their farms.
Nilijulishwa na nikaingia kwa mradi. Wafundishwa mambo ya panda. Sasa nikaanza kupanda vile naonyesha.
Wengi wao wakati wa kupanda, wakati wa kupalilia, wa kutoa kwekwe kwa chakula hawaonekani, lakini siku hizi wameanza kuingia, wamefundishwa.
Mada demo imefanywa kwangu, watu wale wengine wanakuja kusomea hapo ile watapanda, watachaguaji mbegu, spacing, na tukasoma mambo ya crop rotation kupitia kwa hii mradi. Ukulima umefikia mahali.
Tumefunzwa mambo ya teknolojia mpya ya conservation agriculture. Weka moja hapo, ile hapa, na tukafundishwa mambo ya diversification. Kama saa hii nimepanda maharagwe ya nyota, nimepanda mahindi ya nduma, nimepanda pia boga na pasture, na nimepanda cassava. Juu tumefundishwa hii aspect ya drought resistant crops.
Sasa hatulimi kama zamani. Tulikuja kujua kama ukikata mitaro itaweka maji sana. Hii maganda ya mahindi ukitandika kwa shamba itashikilia maji na itafanya hii chakula umepanda ikuwe vizuri.
Nilikuwa napata less than 4 bags ya mahindi. Maharagwe kama tu nusu gunia hivi. Lakini la sasa nimetoa 27 bags ya mahindi kwa hii shamba hii yote. Na maharagwe nimetoa 3 bags. Na pigeon peas nimetoa 3 bags. Na tunauza pamoja. Zamani mtu angechukua, ungetoka kidogo upate imeuzwa gunia 2. Wanaume walikuwa tu msemo.
Tumesoma mengi na tunaendelea vizuri. Na naona tutaendelea tu na kufanya hii kazi ya ukulima tukitumia hiyo ujuzi wa ripoti.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So we will just go straight into the presentation. In this session, we want you to understand how we are supporting climate resilience building, both at the national and subnational levels and on the ground in terms of the field household level. So my part is to show the more national level support in terms of a decision support tool. And then my colleague Eileen will come in later to show how we are also supporting resilience building from the household level. Thank you. So we will present on gender and climate vulnerability hotspot mapping as a decision support tool. We have already seen in the video what the challenge is, the fact that climate is really impacting in the household level production. And I bring a case from Ghana. So we all know about the global mega trends and the challenges already. Temperatures are rising. This is what we know. There is increased climate variability, also a threat to agriculture, energy, and water sectors. But the issue is the unequal vulnerability. And here we want to put the attention on women, because climate hits women harder due to existing inequalities. So what do we do here? We see the gendered impacts climate change in women in agriculture, energy, and the water sectors. So you can see already 70% of the workforce as women. They are involved in subsistence farming, limited access, and also control over land and economic resources. When we come to the energy sector, it's the same thing. They spend a lot of time collecting fuel, and also they are responsible for household energy. When we look at the water sector, women and girls, they are the ones always going long distances to get water for the household. Water scarcity is also impacting on their agro-processing. The gap is already there. Usually we are missing the gender element in all these vulnerability assessment, and there is also slow integration of gender into climate action. So what is the contribution here? So in partnership with Agnes, we are collaborating to provide interactive maps that helps us to understand where women are vulnerable, what they are vulnerable in, and what adaptive capacity interventions that we can put in place to assist them. So our solution is this interactive map. We hope to, the bandwidth is very low, so we cannot show them, but generally we have these maps, which are sex disaggregated maps for about 261 districts in Ghana. So these are all the districts, the entire country, and it focuses on climate exposure, sensitivity, and adaptive capacity. For women, we focus on the women. So for example, these are the maps. These are not the interactive ones, but they are the ones that you can see here on the screen. It tells you where women are vulnerable. So this is like the top 20 or 25 in the country, all the districts, and it's for agriculture, water, and the energy sector. Key takeaways. These maps help us to do inclusive policies and also provide resilient development interventions. The agenda's responsible solutions. They also help us to connect the agriculture, water, and energy sectors. So for women, you know that it's not just agriculture, they need water, but they also need energy for the household. There's a need for intersectorial collaboration, and also it's important for gender transformative programming. What's the way forward? We want to use these hotspot maps to inform adaptation options for Ghana, and this has been done for Kenya and also Uganda, Botswana. We are still hoping to do many more countries. We want to scale up gender responsive climate action, and there is the need for research and collaboration. So we want to say thank you to Agnes and to Lynn. She's a very able geospatial engineer who helped us to do the interactive maps. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Charity. Hopefully we'll get to see those maps maybe during the break or something like that for those who are interested. Really interesting stuff. Okay, we'll move very swiftly into our next presentation, which focuses on socio-technical innovation bundling to build women's resilience to climate change. And that was what was profiled in the video. And the presentation will be by Eileen Nchanji, who is a gender specialist working for the Alliance for Biodiversity, CIAT, in the Pan-African Bean Research Alliance program. And I had the pleasure of working with you under the Ukama Ustawi initiative, which was great fun. So over to you, Eileen.
Going to the video. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So this is a work we've done in Kenya, India, Ethiopia, just to give you some scope. Multiple colleagues, some of them are in the room, Desal and Lutomia. Why? Okay, fine. So what's the problem? Adoption is very low. We have many innovations, maybe 1,500, 600 and something validated, but only 6 used. And looking at the impact, we're not sure what's happening. So a lot of our products is really focus on the technology, on the technical, but we don't think of the social. we talk about it, but often we don't bundle it. So yeah, we are saying, can we have a more systematic, holistic approach where we bring the technology, it's okay. We have to build capacity, definitely, but we bring the social. So looking at markets, looking at nutrition, looking at other issues to even do with, just building institutions. What? Yeah, so we had a process, partnership, and then also looking at who do we bring on the table, private, public sector partners, but not just bringing so many partners. What's their interest? Are they willing to, actually roll this out? So this is an example for Kenya. So you have a situation analysis because you need to know what's happening, bring the stakeholders because you want something that they want. So there's a lot of co-designing happening. And then we piloted it within the Ukama Ustawi project because there was a lot more on the technology. And then what we also did was we collected baseline data, and endline data later, but most importantly, monitoring and evaluation, and then having an exiting plan. Because when you have the results, then you have people who are interested in, you need to think, how do you put it in their hands? You can't be in the field as a CG all the time. How do you get other people to roll this? So this is what some of those technologies look like, a lot more the technical technology, a lot more on this side, the social. Okay, I just need to keep my fingers here. Some of the results. What we realized was if there was a shock, 9% recovery what was happening. We also saw if you bundle this technology, so the whole of bundling, you would not only build the adaptive capacity, but also then you can actually prevent it before it happens. Those who were empowered were more resilient. Interestingly, we were seeing significant empowerment across absorptive resilience, marginal increase in women empowerment. So these are just some results across Kenya and Ethiopia. And then to make sure that we move to the next level, we brought in end users. So we started with FAO, we started with CARE, just to present to them, what did we do? Why is this approach important? What are some of the results? But how can they roll it out? So how do we get government, private sector partners to integrate this in the program? So for us with the new science program, this becomes key. Because if we get this in scaling, which I know I'm still going to be working with Inga, we get this in climate action, we get this in sustainable farming. I don't have to be everywhere running around fragility, but now you just make sure that there's a comprehensive package. And for us, that's really what is important. We have documentation, please. Desalen, Lutomia, put up your hands. If you need anything, reach out to them. Nathan is always our central point. You can always get to any of us. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eileen. Short and sweet. So what that means, let me just check on my time. No, I was hoping to sneak in a question or two from the audience, but I'm going to have to move on to the panel and let's see how we go. If we can take the panel, I'd really like to get some audience questions and engagement with you. So while they are setting up, I'd like to introduce our panel, who are a panel of partners that are or have used some of these approaches, and we want to really kind of stress test them. How are they useful? How have they been implemented? How can they add value? And so on. So the first panelist I'd like to introduce is Ms. Jacqueline Mokoka. She's the director at the State Department for Gender and Affirmative Action here in Kenya. Jacqueline, okay, great. Give her a round of applause, folks. Like you mean it, like you mean it. Thank you. Great. Then I'd like to also call on Lynn Chepcheng, who is a research officer at Agnes, the Africa Group of Negotiators. Expert support. We've got Lynn. Thank you. Also, welcome Lynn to the floor. Thank you, Lynn. The next panelist is Dr. Desiglin Mola, who is the country representative for the Alliance and Biodiversity SIAT in Ethiopia. Thank you, Desiglin. Welcome. And then we have Dr. Emeriton Giru, who is a research scientist at Calro. Welcome. Okay, do we have another microphone for our panelists? Is it possible to find one? It will just be easier. I mean, I can project if I need to. It's never been an issue for me. Okay, yeah, maybe I do that until, who are we going to start with, Jacqueline? Oh, yes, good point. Okay, so while we're getting the microphone, I'd like to start with Jacqueline. Jacqueline, you heard charities talk about maps, the vulnerability hotspot maps. What do you see as the opportunities for integrating gender considerations into national climate resilience interventions? And how can or are gender hotspot maps influencing climate action in Kenya? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And once again, just to appreciate the power in partnership. We partners with Agnes Lynn here in the development of the hotspot maps in Kenya. So there were gender and climate vulnerabilities hotspot maps. And for us, from a policy angle, we see quite some opportunities because it makes sense for policy development and implementation from an informed point of view. Because when, those interactive maps, when you click on them, and for Kenya, we also focused on the energy, water, and agriculture sectors. So you look, across the counties in Kenya, and you see which county is vulnerable in what sense to climate change, and how, those three sectors are affected. So the maps are really come in handy in informing a policy, because good policy implementation, as I've mentioned, is guided by facts and figures, and also looking at the vulnerability, therefore influencing where investment goes. So resource allocation comes in very handy. And there was quite some interest from counties, and I know the issue of resources is usually very enticing. So like some counties saying, but no, our I think we are more vulnerable, because they think that, when you say you're more vulnerable, then that attracts more investment. Nevertheless, I think it's important that those maps and realities influence what kinds of investment and resources. And the beauty with the process, apart from the secondary data that informed the maps, the research team went, to a sample of the counties to verify, how that map appears. So if it's a hotspot, there was an opportunity to go to the ground and meet, community members, the issue of lived realities, like, so that what is showing on the map is really what is on the ground, which I think it was a very good way of verifying data and also enhancing the same where necessary. And so the maps also influence targeted capacity building, because sometimes you find that the communities are not aware of what is at stake as regards climate change, that affects all these sectors. And you realize that when you look at agriculture, water, energy, they're very interconnected. So that information, therefore, very important. So in terms of how they are influencing policy, one of the key areas, I know there are so many, and I know we don't have much time. Like Kenya, right now we are in the process of developing our national gender and climate change action plan. And this information from these hotspot maps is really going a long way in informing interventions across the whole country. So the vulnerability of the various sectors to climate change are informing the actions that are then coming into this. And you see, this is a very clear connectivity between research and policy, because this is a policy document, but there'll be a multiplicity of stakeholders that take up actions, but actions that are informed by research.
I have to stop you there, but I just want in 20 seconds or less, how can the maps be made more effective to actually address gender inequalities in the counties? Is there anything that Charity and the team can do?
Yes. So as she showed the maps, so you can see the vulnerabilities. And as I mentioned, there were gender and climate vulnerabilities. But you know, several speakers have been talking about when you analyze men or women, they're not homogeneous. So I think there's need to go deeper into disaggregation, because even amongst women, there are a group of women that are more vulnerable, like women with disabilities, for instance, as compared to the rest of women or young people or men and so on. So I think there would be value to come up with a way of disaggregating data beyond, you know, the binary.
To stop you, thank you, Jacqueline. Apologies because I've got Alice here keeping me on time. Let's move to Lynn, if that's okay. Lynn, you work for Agnes, as we said before. How does Agnes facilitate collaboration with other African countries to develop and utilize these maps, these vulnerability hotspot maps, to also address gender inequalities in that way at maybe the policy level?
Yeah, thanks very much, Inga, and thanks for this opportunity. Indeed, collaborations is at the center of how these studies are conducted. And how we do this, number one, is by collaborating with the governments. Once we have countries that have expressed interest to get supported to conduct these vulnerability assessments, then we are able to have high-level consultations at the ministry levels, and then this is just to ensure that there is ownership of this product at the end of the day. And number two, the approach that we take is by working with national experts team. Like Jacqueline indicated before, there's an expert team that worked through the whole process. And this applies to the countries that we've done the hotspot mapping work already. So the composition of these expert teams is experts from the ministries of environment, or ministries that are responsible for climate change, ministries of gender, but also experts from the specific sectoral ministries where the countries have prioritized to focus on for these studies.
What were some of the challenges? Or did everybody just accept these maps and just take ownership of it? Were there some challenges that you experienced?
Well, I think the immediate challenge that I think is very evident is with regard to data. So we have very limited data, especially when you look at it from the sex disaggregation component. So you realize that many of our African countries, yes, we have data, but when you look keenly, especially at the socio-economical indicators, then you realize we cannot get disaggregation of data. I know Jacqueline mentioned even going deeper at looking at the other intersecting issues, but even at the male-female level, we still have a lot of data gaps. But maybe I just mentioned that this, again, can be a call to action for governments, that they don't just look at it as a challenge, but an opportunity to inform how we collect data. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, thank you for that. So Charity, I think you've got some good feedback there for Hotspot Map 2.0. Thank you very much. Let's move on to Desiglin. What are the processes and the partnerships that you engaged with and through to facilitate these socio-technical innovation bundles to really, make an impact on the ground?
Thank you so much. I would like to say thank you for the organizer to giving me this chance as well. We start with the process back in 2023, where we had a wonderful workshop with UU and HERPLUS.
In 2023, we're going to run out of time.
That's the process. The process where it starts. Okay. So the process starts at that because you asked me the process. So in that workshop, we identified our partners, our collaborations, and we identify also the gaps where we are working, especially World Veg Center and SNV are working on vegetable networks or value chains. So in that, as Ellen said, we were focusing on the technical part or the technological aspect. So we identify where we can integrate or bundle the social aspects. So we identified three important social components to bundle with the technological. The first one was the digital solution, where we can support the farmers or women farmers so that they can be empowered and make resilience in the wake of climate action. And the second one was, identified was, gender responsive and nutrition sensitive training as a component so that they can, because, women are producing, vegetables, they run to market rather than, feeding, for example, their children at home. That was the gap we identified. And the other important component was, integrating even the knowledge or the indigenous knowledge of the farmers themselves. So we come up with this social components of the intervention. So we did interactive sessions with our partners and identified the gaps. And we also try to integrate the private sector, especially for digital solution called LERSHA platform that helps us, especially to support the farmers or the women farmers, especially to get into the market as well as to finance and climate information. The other important issue, as I said, was the gender or the capacity development aspect. So we cascade training from TOT to the grassroots level, and we produce, for example, the training manuals, as you have shown in the presentation earlier. We develop into 2 languages, for example, including the local language called Afan Oromo, and it's also in the G-Space you can find, and you can use it also elsewhere. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll hopefully come back to you, but I do want to ask Emerita a question first, and then hopefully we can come back with a question or two from the audience, if I can sneak it in. So, Emerita, what successes did you see in integrating, these social innovations in the existing innovations that are already being implemented in Kenya?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity. So decision-making is based mainly on the access to resources and inputs. So resource availability affects the decision-making and the inputs acquisition. We found that in those areas, the women were making daily decisions on the work to be done on the farm, and they're providing the work themselves, they are doing the work. But the men own the resources, the land and the money, and made the decisions on how to use the money and the land, especially even the money which came from the proceeds from the household. So the women are feeling that after all, they're working so hard and they're not gaining much, and that lowered the productivity. Then the men were also feeling they were left out because most of the programs were geared, the gender-based programs are geared towards empowering women, but they don't do much about the men. So the men feel they are left out, plus the youth. Most of them go idling and drinking and using the money that come from the proceeds from the farm. So what we knew was that in KALRO and in other organizations, we have so many technologies which have been developed, and those technologies are not being used fully. The women who are doing the farm work who could not adapt all the technologies because they did not have the finances to purchase some of the inputs. And at the same time, they're feeling the work was too much for them. The workload was too much and they could not add anything more, and they're not benefiting much. So we came in with these intentional trainings and demonstrations, which were geared towards bringing the men and the women together so that they can learn together and grow up together. And we brought in the crop diversification demonstrations, conservation agriculture demonstration, use of dry land crop varieties. We also brought in the gender-based nutrition, where we bring the men and the women together, the couples training. And in those trainings, we're encouraging them to make decisions together so that they can grow up together in the household, and each one of benefits, and everybody gets an equal opportunity. And just as you have seen in the video there, we have several successes. The men are now getting more close to the farming activities. They're participating more. The women were saying initially they could just leave, if they leave, after they leave the produce in the household, the house, the men can come and sneak in, take the maize or the beans and sell. Then the lady comes back and finds nothing. But now they make the decisions together. They know what can be eaten at home, they plan on what could grow, what can be eaten at home, what can be sold. And then the proceeds from the sales, they share together. They know who can be given what amount of money for doing several other things, even the children. So everybody's benefiting equally, and they're now, as they say, the production has even gone up, and they're happy together. The nutrition has also been improved because of the gender-based nutrition trainings and the diversification issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I want to take one or two questions from the floor. So I'm going to go off script else, but I'll catch up. I promise you. But I do want to, so I've got one hand in the front and one hand at the back. Only two for now. So please use the microphones on the tables. Please keep it brief. Thank you. Over to you, Des.
Hi, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, look, amazing work, firstly, and congratulations and thank you. I want to ask about something that might be a little bit off script, because what you're talking about is using agriculture as a tool to restructure societal relations. What are you seeing already as the impact?
Excellent question. Thank you. So anyone can answer. Let's take the question at the back, please. Can you use a microphone on the desk if possible? Sorry.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I agree. Amazing work. My question is about the hotspot mapping and specifically the user testing. And I was wondering, I may have missed it, if farmers are part of the user testing. I know they're not the targeted end users. However, they're important for ground truthing, interpretation, and yeah, a deeper understanding of what the maps mean. So that's my question.
Great, thank you. So who, Charity or Lynn or Jacqueline, you want to take the second question? And who wants to take the first one? Any takers? Impact. We are here to talk about impact. Hello, hey, excellent. Okay, so firstly.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Very important question, because at the end of the day, the farmers and people on the ground are the people who actually matter in this interventions. So what we did after we have the hotspot maps, which are generated, of course, from secondary data, then we go to the grounds and have focus group discussions at community level. So we integrated both farmers and experts at the subnational level, just to get their views of what are some of the issues that are being felt on that in that specific hotspot location. And then we are able to validate whether what we are seeing on the analysis is true, but we are also able to interrogate further some of those gendered issues that are there in that place. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. Maybe if I can, feel free to catch up during the lunchtime. I think that would be already a networking opportunity. Eileen, if you can please respond to the question on impact.
Yeah, so I completely agree. Agriculture is the entry point. And that makes sense, because if you start with the cultural norms and then it's a power shift where the men feel like, why do you want to change what is there? But when you come where people think of their livelihoods and how they benefit, and it's not just women, it's men, it's youths, then you have them thinking, oh, this is great, because even as a man, it doesn't change my position in the culture, even as a woman. Impacts we're seeing increase impact in resilience, not just adaptive. So it's like we don't have to wait for something bad to happen, but a lot more before it happens, which I think that's always what we want, but sometimes difficult to get. So
and difficult to
we can talk
measure, I
about it.
guess, also,
Yeah,
right?
difficult to measure as well, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for that. We have to rush along. Give the panel a round of applause. And to Eileen and Charity, thank you so much. Really great and wonderful session also. Charity, Eileen, else. Great to have partners also talking about the tools. Okay, great way to introduce session number 2, which is now going to be a series of fireside chats on gender transformative approaches and methods in different projects, in different countries. And we have a really great team of speakers. So the first one is Dr. Ojong Ba, who is online. So we will ask her a few questions, but I believe there is a video to show first. So let's go to the video.
The Kamostawi initiative has been supporting households on conservation agricultural practices, finding ways of diversifying their livelihoods and improving the outcomes of their livelihoods. In this process, we were able to think through how can we reduce unintended consequences. One of the things we came across was that for farmers who practice conservation agriculture, the transformation that comes with it often comes with risk and unintended consequences. Ukamostawi Initiative Work Package 5 on Gender and Social Inclusion decided to implement an approach that helps to reduce unintended consequences. And this approach is called the Gender Action Learning Systems.
We started with stakeholder sensitization, where we invited stakeholders from Kotakota and Balaka communities. So each community was represented by a stakeholder. And through that stakeholder sensitization meeting, we were able to identify the first 40 people to be used as girls champions. So it was well blended to include traditional leaders, the youth, cooperative and farmers organization leaders, the local government decentralization structure.
We were able to bring together 4,000 households to learn and share with one another a vision that promotes a sustainable future for them and the community.
In the very first place, for us as Total Land Care, we are so grateful for this integration of the gender inclusion into the work package that we already had, because most of the times for us, it has been the conservation agriculture that we've been working on, but we were still missing this gender component. And the coming in of the gender component has opened eyes, not only of the beneficiaries, but even of us as officers and also government staff and extension workers that are working to see we can achieve much from what we've been doing through this visioning.
There were some issues that we were not able to understand before coming here. We were doing things based on our experience or casually. But with this training, now we are able to know that we do have vision, and to achieve our vision, there are certain things that we need to follow.
Despite many of them having maybe different visions, let's say they would want to build a better house. Some would even say, I want to buy, let's say, a motorcycle, a motorbike. But when we are doing the vision journey, we are listing down or putting in the activities which these people, or even us ourselves, are going to do in order to generate income to reach our vision. And most of the activities which are being listed could be such to do with farming. But when we are analyzing, let's say, the weakness part or the barriers or the vision journey, issues of climate change, drought could come in. So issue of irrigation could still come in, despite these participants having different visions. So Yeah, to me, it's also a crucial area which has to be looked into.
Through the training, we have come through the challenges or the barriers. What are the barriers they are facing? They have discovered like weather changes, like soil degradation, and some other problems. Through these obstacles or these barriers, now they have realized that at first we were not harvesting enough because of maybe weather, changes of weather. But they can now use CA or peat planting or other ways of water harvesting technologies to harvest water so that they can reduce hunger.
Maphunziro amene wawa ndapangapo zinthu zina zimene ine sindachitepo chikhalire. Taphunzirapo ngati mene tingakonzekerere makamaka masomphenya athu kuti tikwanitsa bwanji. Yeah, nde angakhale mbewu msitima kwanitsa koma apapa takonzekera kugula ngati fertilizer, tagulako so ngati makasu, maso ndi zinthu zina zimene zingatithandize monga mbewu. Taphunziranso tagulako so ziwiya zina zomwe mbuyo musitinakwanitsa kugula timango basi ndi mmene zimakhalira.
Niona ngati kuti atiphunzitse zinthu zina zoti zikhale patsogolo pathu zikhale moyonso kuti zitiphunzitse ubwino wake unena kuti kwina tikhoza kugula kanjinga kayanijani kudzapakhomo ngatete kaya kudimba ndiye kuti khoza ulima munda 1 acre 2 acre kani 3 acre ulima ntedza nyemba sa ijeni chimanga tikhoza panga choncho.
As extension workers who have been trained in this pilot phase, we plan to reach out to the households that haven't been trained yet, so that as an EPA, we can achieve all the households that are supposed to be trained. Those approach has helped to open the minds of the farmers that we have. When we're doing the gender balance tree, the farmers were able to notice that some of the activities that are done in agriculture are done mostly by women. So they could see that even men can take part. So we believe in the coming years, we'll be seeing more men doing the agricultural work because of the goals approach. Culturally, we know that most of the household chores are done by women, but this approach has helped the men to understand how much work is done by the women. So we expect, we anticipate to see change in the households that we have here at Mansam.
Great, thank you for that. I'd like to check, is Ojong online? Great. Is it possible to see her on the screen? Hi, Ojong, can you hear us?
Hi, Inga. Hi, everyone. I can
Hi.
hear you very well.
Great. So, Ojong Bai is a researcher in gender and social inclusion at the International Water Management Institute. She was one of the co-leads of the JC work package under the regional initiative, Ukama Ustawi. And as the video showed, it was demonstrating the impact of the GALS approach, gender action learning, as an entry point for inclusive practices, specifically on conservation agriculture. So Ojong, my question to you is, why did you choose conservation agriculture as the entry point to implement the GALS approach?
Yeah, thanks, Inga. I think for Kamostawi, we had a very big focus on crop diversification and livelihoods. So conservation agriculture was one of the activities. And again, we all know it's increasingly been recognized, for its potential to enhance productivity. Again, its ability to, push the whole sustainability practices for agriculture, integrating different principles that are very sustainable. To us, that was a big entry point to support farmers who were already struggling in Malawi. But again, the the adoption and uptake also, it's something else. So while we recognize the value of conservation agriculture, we could also see that for young people and maybe women to adopt and uptake this innovation, it was often met with stiff resistance, unintended consequences, and conservation agriculture has been done and led for over, I think, 18 years in some of the programs in Malawi. And we had to first of all start by investigating what are really the barriers for uptake and adoption. So we came to realize, gender roles were tightly defined and controlled by men, of course, in most cases at the household and community levels. So in that way, women and other marginalized groups were quite limited. They really had little influence, control over, and even access to valuable resources needed for them to adopt or uptake conservation agriculture as a sustainable innovation. So for us, there was therefore a clear entry point, to mitigate these unintended consequences and ensure that over 4,000 households targeted for this program, especially women and youth, were able to adopt the technology with very little barriers, especially when we look at gender norms and different challenges experienced in a community. So that was a clear entry point where we felt the girls' approach could be an excellent area to pilot, given that conservation agriculture was already happening in the communities, happening within Ukama Ostawi projects, but also we could see that there was potential for uptake and adoption.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll come back to you, so don't go away. But thank you for sharing the girls' approach. I'd like to then ask, actually it's another video, right? So this is now moving from the Ukama Ustawi initiative to Her Plus, and looking at how gender norms in Tanzania have been transformed. So we should have had popcorn else, because there's so many great videos. So let's go to the next one. next time.
Mimi shughuli zangu ambazo nashughulika nazo katika kaya yangu ni kilimo cha muhogo. Changamoto ambazo nakutana nazo kama mwanamke, tukilima kwa pamoja na mme pamoja na familia, mimi sipewi kipaumbele kusimamia mapato.
Tunalima, kishamaliza kulima tunapanda, kishamaliza kupanda tunapalilia, tunakuvuna. Lakini sio changamoto yetu kubwa ni mbegu bora. Nikimshirikisha mume wangu ili unichukue mkopo, anakataa kwa sababu mimi similiki ardhi.
To contribute in addressing these development challenges, we engaged our partners to design gender transformative interventions so that we can help address these challenges in order for both women and men to be able to seize economic opportunities for the benefit of all.
By engaging community members in the design process, co-design builds trust between implementing organizations and the beneficiaries.
Tunashukuru kwa kushirikishwa, kutaja na jinsi ya kutatua changamoto zetu.
Tunawashukuru IITA pamoja na Koropin kwa kushirikiana na sisi kutatua changamoto zetu. Asanteni sana.
Great. So now we'd like to call on, in fact, all the speakers of the fireside chat. I think it's going to be better if we all come up in the front, so it's more like a chat. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Els Likuter, who is a senior scientist with the Gender Accelerator. Els led the CG initiative on gender equality and is now also co-leading the area of work solutions for impact of the Gender Accelerator. Then I'd like to call on Dr. Katrina Kosek, who is a senior research fellow at IFPRI. Katrina is a senior research fellow in poverty, gender, and inclusion at IFPRI. And she is also the interim deputy director of the new CGIAR science program on food frontiers and security. Then I'd call on Dr. Emily Gallagher, who is a scientist at C4 and ECRAF in human environment, a human environment geographer, whose research focuses on social dimensions of landscape change. Next up, we have Ms. Nelly Njiru, who is an interdisciplinary researcher at ILRI with 10 years of experience in gender and socioeconomic studies across East and West Africa. And finally, we've got Dr. Annette Mulema, who is a senior program officer at IDRC. Great to have you all here. A power panel. Please give them a round of applause. Let's be encouraging. Thank you very much. And now let me get my bearings. One moment. Thank you. There we go. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. Alice, can we start with you, please? How did the team identify what norms are most restrictive? And I believe it was the cassava value chain in Tanzania, the video. So maybe you can just start with that.
Thank you. So the team actually identified those most restrictive norms in a multi-step approach. So first consulting with local experts on what are the gender norms that restrict gender equality, women's economic empowerment in the cassava value chain, and their resilience to climate change. A qualitative assessment followed, and then also the design of a quantitative tool to assess gender norms. That quantitative tool has 74 norm items, and those are related to, for instance, material resources, to division of labor and mobility, to leadership, to technology and training, and then also what we call gender meta-norms, so norms that exist in the wider society, not just in the value chain. So those are, for instance, norms about household decision-making. In the tool, there's questions about what we call descriptive and injunctive norms. So descriptive is what is the typical behavior. And the injunctive norm is sort of what is the appropriate behavior, what you should do. And a norm is taken to be most restrictive if it's both a descriptive and a injunctive norm. And so in this case, for instance, women's access to credit and use of credit came out as a very highly restrictive norm in that cassava value chain in Tanzania. Because norms are different at different nodes in the value chain, the data was then also collected from different value chain actors. So the producers, the processors, the traders. Then the data was analyzed. So what are the gender norms in that cassava value chain? And then what are the most restrictive ones? That went into a consultation with relevant stakeholders to validate and to look at like what are now leverage points, levers for changing some of those discriminatory norms. Then the local partners reviewed again the restrictive norms to, based on their experience, select the most relevant for them, and to identify now how do we leverage a transformation to more equitable form of that norm. And based on those insights, the local partners, we worked with local partners to co-design those gender transformative approaches that then are locally relevant and then relevant for the cassava value chain. So here, in that case, it was land ownership for women that came out also as a very restrictive norm. What they co-designed is radio programs where land experts coupled with success stories are invited. Those radio programs are also shown in community dialogues where then there's a critical reflection together with the community. And another intervention is, for instance, community action plans to address that challenge of women's lack of access to land. Thank you.
Can you maybe just, oh, sorry, I was just looking at my notes.
Why was the co-design process so important?
Yeah, the co-design process is really important because that makes it context specific and value chain specific, makes it inclusive, and that actually contributes to being effective and sustainable. So it really leverages that local knowledge, and those local partners have the first-hand experience of what these social and gender norms mean in their realities, and then also have a grounded understanding of how could you change? How can you make a change? What would work to make this less discriminatory? It also ensures practicality, because it helps tailor these interventions to really practical day-to-day real-life challenges that these people have. That makes it more actionable and impactful. It also facilitates buy-in and greater acceptance by community, and that's very important when you're talking about norms. Also enhances ownership and a sustainability beyond the program lifespan. And I think we saw it in the video of the gals and her plus video. It actually sort of the local partners, they express like, okay, I feel sort of empowered even within the process of consultation and co-designing these interventions. Thank you.
So we've moved from gals, where we've identified how it can help mitigate exclusion, risks of exclusion. Now we're talking about other GTAs that help in co-design, how that also helps identify restrictive norms, right? So lots of benefit and value in these GTA methods. Let's move on to you, Katrina. What did your team find about the value of training women to engage with their local leaders, and how was Melia central in this work?
Great, thank you. So we know, and I am not educating anyone in this room, we know that in low and middle income countries, women's ability to influence local decision-making in their communities is substantially limited. And we also know that in rural areas, it can be even more limited. These are places where traditional gender norms are often more entrenched. It's places where formal accountability structures and governance can be a bit weaker. So we know we have a challenge. And what our team asked was, what can be done to change that? And to explore this, we used rural Nigeria as a test case. We worked with ActionAid Nigeria, and we co-designed and developed through quite an iterative process, many focus groups, a curriculum to be delivered over a period of 6 months. And ActionAid then deployed this curriculum to groups of 13 women in each of 300 communities across rural Nigeria. And the training brought together these small groups of women, 13 women each, and it really focused on helping the women understand local governance structures, learn how to communicate effectively with their leaders, and learn how to identify their concerns as women, collectively identify their priorities, gain their voice, engage male allies, and build sort of confidence in this network of women that can do more because they're together. And then we went on to rigorously assess this. We brought in an independent survey firm, so it would be very much removed from any of our decision-making here. And we worked with them to roll out a randomized control trial impact evaluation. And what this meant is we had 450 study communities, 300 of them got training of women, and 150 served as our control group. And they look the same. When you look across the groups of 13 women we assembled in control and treatment, they look the same. This was really important for us to be able to causally identify the impacts of the training and be able to compare the trained and untrained women and understand what the training did for them. And what we found was really powerful and exciting results. Trained women were more likely to attend community meetings. They were more likely to speak up in those meetings. They felt they had a group of women they could rely on. They felt that their leaders were responsive to the types of issues they raised. And they reported sort of confidence in speaking and engaging with women and engaging with their leaders as well. But the outcomes didn't stop with political voice. Very important. We saw that trained women were also more likely to apply for community grants, and at the same time as our trainings were rolling out, there was a community grants program across these communities. So women were more likely to apply for these. They were more likely to lead applications on the grants. They were more likely to engage in income generating activities outside the household, experiment with new crop varietals, save to invest in businesses. So in other words, we basically found that the training built more than just civic engagement. It really helped improve policymaker responsiveness to women and build women's economic participation and their resilience, which is so critical in these contexts.
Thank you so much for that. So here we're talking about a curriculum, a training program for women in how they engage with leaders and the lasting impact it has. So really interesting. So we've moved from Malawi to Tanzania to Nigeria. Emily, let's go to you next, if that's okay. You've got a different project. Yours is securing women, land, and resource rights through GTAs. So maybe, yeah, start by telling us a little bit about that project. Where was it, first of all? And then, where am I now? Sorry.
I know the questions.
What are the key findings about how large-scale development projects interacted with women's land and resource rights?
Okay. Thank you. Yes, so this was an EFAD-funded project, and that's important. And it was done with a consortium from C4ECRAF, the Alliance, and IFPRI to bring together EFAD, land, and gender desks to develop gender transformative approaches for these large-scale investments in rural transformation, which transform not just land relations, but also land markets, the commodification of land, and indeed to understand how gender dynamics can affect the outcomes of their EFAD projects. So EFAD selected the projects. They were all projects that had a land or natural resource component, which almost all large-scale projects do, and already had some gender work underway. So in Asia, we had Bangladesh and Kyrgyzstan, in Africa, Uganda, Ethiopia, and the Gambia, and in Latin America, Colombia. And there were also some 30 other learning countries after we went through this process. So let me give Uganda as an example, because it's the project I know best. This was a large-scale investment in oil palm on 4 hubs in around Lake Victoria. They established these concessions where they had an estate farm and smallholders sourcing to the palm oil mills. They did their due diligence. They provided compensation to landlords, tenants, freeholders, even informal settlers, but they gave the money to the household heads. So everybody in this room already knows all the problems with that. There was a windfall with no financial literacy training for the male fishermen and the male farmers to adjust to the new oil palm economy, unless they were already part of the smallholder scheme. But in Uganda, the state recognizes 5 types of marriage, and this includes customary marriage and the rights of women to be consulted. It includes the right of women to agree to land transactions. And this was not observed in phase 1. The women were not aware that they had these rights, and the men themselves were not aware that they could skirt these rights by engaging in customary rather than formal marriages. So in the next phase, the National Oil Palm Project of Uganda, they introduced social mitigation approaches. They introduced the GAL system, the Gender Action and Learning System we just saw in Malawi. They introduced alternative livelihoods focused on women. They introduced affirmative action focused on women for women's employment and youth. And they set aside land specifically for women and youth, as well as the major landholders, which are men. But this also had social impacts. So this is where we started our approach. We did a social legal analysis. We did gender analysis, which include community profiles and FGDs using Genovate approaches. We did validation and sense making, where we brought all the data back to them to make sense of it, to tell us what we see in the data. And then we entered the co-creation process for the GTAs and piloting. So I can tell you in Uganda, there was demand for legal training. There were demands for programs to re-engage men because the men were largely felt alienated and sidelined by all the women's empowerment work. So in each country, we came to a different process to come to different gender transformative approaches.
Excellent. So really engaging men early in the process. I'm gonna go off script. So but I'm interested because you both, Els and Emily, you applied a co-design process. I'm just wondering if the co-design was different, would it have led to the same outcomes? Could you Could you see any like differences that would have impacted the overall results?
Yeah, so what we did in this project across all the 5 countries is we used the Gender at Work framework. And in the co-creation workshops themselves, we had all of the participants mapping existing activities onto the Gender at Work framework. You can't see it here, but it involves a matrix that goes looks from the informal to the formal sector, going from household, individual to household to community, all the way to the systems level. So oftentimes when we map existing projects, they're very much focused on attitudes, perceptions, norms, working at the individual to household level. And I would say GALS is still very much in that space. And this was a project that had major structural changes in entire island communities, and they were working at the household level. For each of the projects, we mapped the existing interventions, and then we went through the co-creation process, did the gap analysis, and then identified what they would like to do. And then we looked at that gender at work framework and said, are we really being transformative across all these spheres? So just in Uganda and the Gambia, for example, they were already doing GALS, household approach. Our job was to push forward on this journey of transformation and ask what else could we do. So in both of those countries, we came up with legal empowerment clinics on land and resource rights, focused on women's land and resource rights. In Uganda, as I mentioned, there was this additional concern with keeping men involved, and some of the negative masculinities were unhealthy for the men, their communities, and focus on positive masculinities and how to re-engage men in positive ways without necessarily transforming the masculinity of it. In Kyrgyzstan, they did financial literacy. In the Gambia and Colombia, they came around to do planning for community organizing and advocacy and through learning journey approaches. In Ethiopia, they said we already have a GTA approach around the gender model family, and they wanted a GTA approach to monitor and evaluate their GTA approach.
So very like context specific, right?
Yes.
The design was determined by the participants.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, got you.
So
All
each co-creation process had different outcomes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Let's move on to Nelly. Again, a different project, a different approach. You're talking about learnings from the LVIF Women REAR project on GTAs and gender accommodative approaches. So now we go from transformative to accommodative. You need to explain what that's about, Nelly. But again, let me find my question. So now, based on your project experience, what has been the most effective strategies for challenging these deeply rooted gender norms and power dynamics? Maybe start there.
Thank you very much, Inga, and hi, everyone. So I'm going to address that question by highlighting an example of a project that we implemented in the Upper East region of Northern Ghana. This is a project that was implemented between 2019 and 2023 by a consortium of 3 institutions. That is the International Livestock Research Institute, ILRI, Care International Ghana, and a private organization called Cowl Tribe. So this project aimed to address various challenges that, as my colleagues have said, that are faced by women, especially in developing countries, whereby in this particular study area, it was not acceptable for women to own livestock. It was also not acceptable for women to sell their livestock when they're allowed to own. It was not also acceptable for women to even make public declaration that these animals are mine. And so it was also not acceptable for women to relate or to talk to unrelated men. And therefore, what this meant is the animal health component was compromised, their productivity was also compromised, as well as the ability to support women and their livelihood and their households was also compromised. And so what the project did, this Women REAR project, was to implement the gender transformative approaches and gender accommodative approaches. You asked me to explain briefly what this means. So gender transformative approaches mainly these are approaches that address the root causes of the problem.
So, but then we realized that the gender accommodative approaches mainly address the symptoms. They do not get deeper into addressing the root causes of the problem. And so this project was to employ both GTAs, the gender transformative approaches, and the GAAs to try and mitigate these challenges that women faced in this study area. And some of the GTA.
Let me ask, so when do you decide when to use a GTA or GAA?
So this was a co-creation with partners, CGIAR International included, plus the farmers, the women farmers, men farmers, plus the local leaders. So there are these initial meetings whereby the co-creation was done. But to start with, basically, we first did an exploration. To get to understand these challenges, we did a qualitative and a quantitative exploration to understand the status quo before the project began. And so we came across these injunctive, as Elsa has tried to explain, injunctive norms and descriptive norms, which really limited women from participating and benefiting from the livestock sector. And then there was an inception, a co-creation platform whereby people sat down, the various stakeholders sat down and discussed what might be helpful to them. And this was implemented by our development partners, CGIAR International and CoTribe. And some of the GTA interventions that the project implemented included community dialogues with all the stakeholders, and also social media campaigns, as well as recruitment of female animal health service providers with an intention of reaching women who are really restricted from interacting with unrelated men. And the other aspect was engagement of men as gender champions. Yeah, so it was not just targeting women, but also men, to avoid that aspect of men feeling not included and rejecting the project, or even sanctioning their wives when they see things happening different. Some of the GAA's interventions that the project implemented included a gender responsive digital app, and through this app, women got registered and they could order livestock vaccines, and they could get distributed to them. Again, there was improved cold chain, because this project was dealing with PPR vaccine and Newcastle disease vaccines. And again, there was also that aspect of use of drones, because the cold chain was really a challenge. There was the use of drones to rapidly distribute the vaccines to the rural areas. And what were some of the impacts when we did the before and after, the with and without comparisons, because this project was implemented in two sets of communities. One community, we had the implementation of gender transformative approaches plus the GAAs. In another set of communities, we had only the GAA done. And this really enabled us to see what was the impact of the project. And so what happened is that in all the communities, there was enhanced, or increasingly women began rearing and also owning livestock, as well as there was massive increase in access of livestock vaccines. And then what was very unique for the communities, in the communities where GTAs only plus GAAs were implemented, was that increasingly women began marketing their livestock, selling, accessing the livestock markets, which was really inhibited. Mobility also increased. And also there was that aspect of empowerment whereby their income increased. There was also confidence increased. They also got ability to declare that they own livestock publicly, and they became more independent, economically independent. In fact, the men began seeing women as economic contributors and not dependents. So that was quite unique for us. And again, this model has been taken up by the government of Ghana in their PPR campaigns. And that was it's really an exciting thing for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Nelly. I want to move to Annette, because you're also working in the livestock space, right? And specifically in the K economy, right? So I want to see what the comparison is between the different GTAs that you applied. But maybe you can just start with explaining a little bit about how gender norms influence the care economy, including roles in livestock farming systems, and how have you used GTAs in your work?
Okay, thank you very much. It's a compound question, loaded.
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much. As I was introduced, I'm Annette, and I work for the International Development Research Institute. So I worked on livestock about 5 years ago or so. Yes. And currently I'm working on care, but also this applies to livestock, because when you speak about care, it's basically the love and support we give to the people we love. They care for the children, the cooking, fetching water, looking after livestock, gardening, all that, that's all care work. So when you speak about how gender norms affect this care work, I think it has already been spoken about, because when it comes to livestock, if I'm to focus on livestock, the culture norms dictate the roles of men and women, the boys and girls. And we'll speak to the study we did in Ethiopia years back, where the roles of the women were basically to do with the cleaning the barns, milking, cooking or handling meat. And then the men were very much involved with the handling, like managing the sick animals, marketing, herding, name it. So what we did there in that project was basically to see if at all we could use the community conversation approach to shift this dynamic, because we're focusing on zoonotic diseases, and how men and women, boys and girls relate with the animals determines the kind of zoonotic disease that they'll be exposed to, because the transmission pathways vary. I could be speaking like a technical, I'm not a vet, I should say, but I ended up in this kind of work. So the pathways vary, So what we wanted to look at was how we can address the disproportionate exposure to these zoonotic diseases, because when you clean the barns, you'll probably be more exposed to issues of lung, pneumonia, because of the dust and all that, the smell, when you're cooking, you're touching meat, brucellosis and all that, you're cooking, handling milk, because in Ethiopia, consumption of raw meat and milk, is a common practice, and that has implications. So we noted that people who are very much involved in directly handling this, the livestock products, but also the animals themselves, were more exposed, and those were the women, the boys, and the girls, vis-a-vis the men, which was more of like an indirect exposure, because they're in the markets, you can stand aside and market your livestock, but of course, they're also very much exposed, because when it comes to the sick animals, then they have to touch, and they touch with bare hands. So I wanted to kind of shift this narrative around the gender norms in Ethiopia. And that's all care work, I should say, yeah. So we use the community conversations, and these are basically dialogues with community members. And we had done a situation analysis before to understand what are the exact issues. How do men, women, boys, and girls relate around livestock? And issues of ownership came in, which we all know, the roles that I've spoken about, all that came in, access to information, the exposures I've talked about on zoonotic diseases. So in these dialogues, basically, we wanted to know how the process of transformation happens, because change doesn't happen like in a day of having a conversation with the community, The selection process matters. Who do you bring on board? And we're deliberate to make sure that we brought couples in these conversations, but also the single-headed households. And if at all, like women-headed households had like elder sons, they brought them in these conversations. So what we noted was that actually this process happens in phases. First of all, engaging communities to diagnose the process, because one has to appreciate the causal relationship, I'm doing this, what are the implications, because discussing it is one thing, but one has to internalize the issue and acknowledge that actually it's a problem. And what is causing this is the norms, And then we got into the issue of determining what actually could help us shift these norms. And we wanted to shift the cognitive part of it, where we shared knowledge about these zoonotic diseases, but also touching the heart, The mental model is one of them, but one has to touch the feelings of those community members for them to change behavior. Because in these conversations, they will tell you what is ideal. Oh, we learned about women's economic empowerment. Oh, it's important to involve women in decision-making. Oh, like the ideal situation, And you can go on and on for like 1 hour and you're not breaking the point until one person shifts the discussion around. And that's when the emotional aspect comes in, the feeling. You're touched by the burden of the women. You're touched that women are actually exposed to these diseases and men are working in the communities, not bothered. So change happens in phases, and we concluded in this study that having conversations is not enough. You have to touch the hearts of the feelings of the community members for them to change.
Thank you. That is a wonderful note to conclude on. Thank you so much for that. And what I've heard anyway, is how gender transformative approaches can really be implemented in multiple value chains, multiple countries, the importance of co-design, bringing men on board and part of the process, and that it can actually lead to very significant project outcomes. So please give the panel a round of applause. Really interesting work. I'm going to ask, please don't leave. I'm going to ask for 1 or 2 questions from the floor, but very quickly, please. And we also in that same time going to load the next Mentimeter question, which we can all participate in. So can we take 2 questions, just very quickly? And while they're loading the Menti, you can load the Menti, please.
Thank you for a great panel. I'd like to connect the 2 panels. How do you bring GTA into socio-technical innovation bundles?
Okay. So integrating GTAs into the bundling process. I'll allow whoever to respond.
No, just a very quick question. They were amazing examples. Really enjoyed them. Just wondering if you could give us some advice about scaling them up and how you do that sort of process. Someone did mention working with the government, but how you can scale them out or scale them up. Thank you.
Great. Katrina, we didn't get to your policy question, and that's a kind of scale up as well. So maybe you want to respond to that. Emily, are you okay with that light? Maybe move just a little bit back so you don't get it in your face. So who is going to respond? Anybody to respond? Who would like to respond very briefly? And then let's load the next question. If you can just put that up. Okay, Emily's going to go first.
I think many of the projects that we're talking about are GTAs already embedded in agricultural projects. I like the idea of calling them bundles so that there is that during the co-creation process, we could co-create around the bundling, what the bundling looks like so that it's more seamless. Because I think oftentimes you're toggling between now we do the gender part, now we do the ag part, now we do the gender part. And I think that using this language of bundling could really help us through any of these co-design processes.
Thank you. Yep, great. And I'm not sure if you got if you saw the video in the beginning, but that was a really great scaling example, right, of how this bundling actually happens in Malawi.
Thanks so much. Really great question about scaling. That's exactly where we are right now after having sort of this proof of concept. I think the evidence is critical. And in this particular study that I've laid out, we learned that relatively low cost, somewhat light touch interventions with women really work. We've learned that the benefits don't stop necessarily at exactly what's targeted and they can spill over. Our partner ActionAid has told us the evidence is critical in order to fundraise, to train facilitators on how to do it better, right? What worked, what didn't work. In the context of an RCT impact evaluation, we can study which women got the benefits and which women didn't, because women are not homogenous. And this relates to the earlier comment on intersectionality. And that allows for more effective targeting in the future, improvement of the curriculum going forward. And this type of, I'd say, evidence is really key. Convincing evidence that is a good case for investment is really, really critical. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll take one more from the panel because we are behind time.
I know.
You have the last word.
I just want to add that in terms of scaling, what Her Plus, the Gender Equality Initiative, also invested in a lot is like guidance notes, like how do you do this social technical innovation bundling? So it's a whole process that you can go through. That's a way of scaling, because it all has to be context specific, right? Because that's the way to make it effective. Also, the norms identification is also a tool that you apply in your context. So that's another way of scaling these approaches.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. I'd like to just move to the Mentimeter questions, if that's okay, because we wanted to hear from the whole group. What lessons have you learned from implementing GTAs in your work? So just some examples that come up that are, it enhances decision-making, it builds agency. We've heard that in our examples in the panel as well. Relationships matter. It takes time. Okay, so we didn't hear so much about how long these processes took. Maybe after the break, we can delve into some of those. Co-development, of course, is key. So people agreeing with you. It requires deep understanding of the norms. That's important. Context, precise, practical, solution-oriented, and something else. Practical, solution-oriented, evidence-based partnerships, resources remain key. There's a dire need for social inclusion and equity. Learned that GAL's framework is an effective tool that ensures inclusivity. So wonderful. Thank you for these contributions. Please give the panel another round of applause for the great fireside chat. Thank you so much. I know your one slides were not able to be projected, but hopefully we can do that now during the break. We're going to take a short break, about 10 minutes or so. Please be back here at 12:25, where we have our third session, a very interesting one, specifically on leadership. And now I hand the moderation baton over to my colleague, Dr. Rahma Adam, who will moderate the third session. So please do come back after tea in 10 minutes. Thank you. And there's tea for everyone. Outside, please enjoy. Oh, thank you, World Fish, for offering the tea.
It's the second largest lake in the world. 50 million people throughout East Africa depend on this lake directly or indirectly. Lake Victoria means life to these people. It means everything to these people. We were able to conduct a study to understand the impacts of climate change in the livelihood of the fisher communities of Lake Victoria. The minimum temperature and maximum temperature, as well as rainfall, have significantly increased. And the increase is not only felt in the data, but it's also felt by the people. We came up with gender-responsive interventions that could really address fish loss and waste and fish preservation. In any given day, in the banks of Lake Victoria, women are drying the small fish called omena. Women here are sweeping, basically turning the small fish from one side to another. But during heavy rains, they have no way of preserving that fish, of drying that fish. And it's not very hygienic. The birds can eat them, the dogs can eat them. There's dust and sand. So it's not a very good quality product if it's dried that way. Working with the Kenya Marine Research Institute, Wellfish was able to manufacture solar tent dryers. It's basically like a greenhouse, and it's covered by a polythene material. Inside that, we have drying racks where women can lay their fish, and within 1.5 to 2 hours, it will dry, and it will be good quality.
In this community, without fishing, we will not survive. That is 100%. I'm a very much 100% sure that without fishing, we won't survive. I'm very much grateful for the World Fish for bringing us this dryer. Since it was brought here, it has changed our lives. We used to have the problem of preserving the fish, but now we have the dryer with us. We are very much happy about it.
The self-help groups, they are really excited. They want bigger solar tent dryers. They want to see more of them, you know, and they see a really good potential in terms of drying and processing of their fish and be able to participate in larger markets in town. We went to Nyandiwa village where we had a women's self-help group involved in fish trading, processing, and selling. And these women, they call themselves Suna ladies. The solar freezers and the batteries is housed at one of their members. And the solar panels, which has a warranty of 25 years, is in the roof for communities that are very poor. When electricity is not available, they still have the solar panel to supply power to the freezer, and their fish can be stored and preserved for a longer term.
We never even knew there was a solar freezer, but through the World Fish, now we are aware that the solar freezer exists, and now it really helps the local, because sometimes electricity do go off, but the only option which remains is only the solar freezer.
It's not only this group that is able to store the fish there, but also other women and men who want to preserve their fish. They come to them and they pay for each kilo they preserve in the freezer. The communities have been thrilled to have the solar freezers. They want bigger solar freezers. They want more solar freezers. One of the group members were saying, you know, we should make sure we have it in each of the locales. The smoking kiln can hold up to 200 kgs of fish. And the fish can be cooked within an hour and a half, up to 2 hours. It will be ready and tasty for the consumer and ready to go to the market.
Since the World Fish came and gave us this smoking kiln, a lot of benefits has accrued to us. Most of the time they used to have children in the home because they could not afford school fee. And since they got the smoking kiln, their children are going to school because they have the resources.
The beauty of this smoking kiln is we are able to harvest the fish oil, the omega-3. We hope to train the women to refine it and package it and sell it. They're excited. They want to expand their business. They want bigger smoking kiln. They want more smoking kiln. They want to see themselves thriving in the production of smoked fish. And they want to see themselves, you know, participating in bigger markets in cities. The climate smart fish handling and preservation technologies have really been creating an impact. And one of the longer term goals is working with Homa Bay, one of the biggest riparian counties in the Lake Victoria region, and other stakeholders to produce fisheries and agricultural policy with a huge gender sensitive lens to guide its future plans for the women, men, and youth involved in this sector, and also to attract other private actors and donors to invest in this sector and improve the livelihoods of millions of people. We are really excited as WorldFish to be a partner with them. And this is the journey that we're going to walk with them. Lake Victoria is the second largest lake in the world. 50 million people throughout East Africa depend on this lake directly or indirectly. Lake Victoria means life to these people. It means everything to these people. We were able to conduct a study to understand the impacts of climate change in the livelihood of the fisher communities of Lake Victoria. The minimum temperature and maximum temperature, as well as rainfall, have significantly increased. And the increase is not only felt in the data, but is also felt by the people. We came up with gender responsive interventions that could really address fish loss and waste and fish preservation. In any given day in the banks of Lake Victoria, women are drying the small fish called omena. Women here are sweeping, basically turning the small fish from one side to another. But during heavy rains, they have no way of preserving that fish, of drying that fish. And it's not very hygienic. The birds can eat them, the dogs can eat them. There is dust and sand. So it's not a very good quality product if it's dried that way. Working with the Kenya Marine Research Institute, Wellfish was able to manufacture solar tent dryers. It's basically like a greenhouse, and it's covered by a polythene material. Inside that, we have drying racks where women can lay their fish, and within 1.5 to 2 hours, it will dry, and it will be good quality.
In this community, without fishing, we will not survive. That is 100%. I'm a very much 100% sure that without fishing, we won't survive. I'm very much grateful for the Wild Fish for bringing us this dryer. Since it was brought here, it has changed our lives. We used to have the problem of preserving the fish, but now we have the dryer with us. We are very much happy about it.
The self-help groups, they are really excited. They want bigger solar tent dryers. They want to see more of them, and they see a really good potential in terms of drying and processing of their fish and be able to participate in larger markets in town. We went to Nyandiwa village where we had a women's self-help group involved in fish trading, processing, and selling. And these women, they call themselves Suna ladies. The solar freezers and the batteries is housed at one of their members. And the solar panels, which has a warranty of 25 years, is in the roof for communities that are very poor. When electricity is not available, they still have the solar panel to supply power to the freezer, and their fish can be stored and preserved for a longer term.
We never even knew there was a solar freezer, but through the Wild Fish, now we are aware that the solar freezer exists, and now it really helps the local, because sometimes electricity do go off, but the only option which remains is only the solar freezer.
It's not only this group that is able to store the fish there, but also other women and men who want to preserve their fish. They come to them and they pay for each kilo they preserve in the freezer. The communities have been thrilled to have the solar freezers. They want bigger solar freezers. They want more solar freezers. One of the group members were saying, we should make sure we have it in each of the locales. The smoking kiln can hold up to 200 kgs of fish. And the fish can be cooked within an hour and a half, up to 2 hours. It will be ready and tasty for the consumer and ready to go to the market.
Nyakane, since the Wild Fish came and gave us this smoking kiln, a lot of benefits has accrued to us. Most of the time, they used to have children in the home because they could not afford school fee. And since they got the smoking kiln,
their children are going to school because they have the resources. The beauty of this smoking kiln is we are able to harvest the fish oil, the omega-3. We hope to train the women to refine it and package it and sell it. They're excited. They want to expand their business. They want bigger smoking kiln. They want more smoking kiln. They want to see themselves thriving in the production of smoked fish. And they want to see themselves, participating in bigger markets in cities. The climate smart fish handling and preservation technologies have really been creating an impact. And one of the longer term goals is working with Homa Bay, one of the biggest riparian counties in the Lake Victoria region, and other stakeholders to produce fisheries and agricultural policy with a huge gender sensitive lens to guide its future plans for the women, men, and youth involved in this sector, and also to attract other private actors and donors to invest in this sector and improve the livelihoods of millions of people. We are really excited as WellFish to be a partner with them. And this is the journey that we're going to walk with them. Lake Victoria is the second largest lake in the world. 50 million people throughout East Africa depend on this lake directly or indirectly. Lake Victoria means life to these people. It means everything to these people. We were able to conduct a study to understand the impacts of climate change in the livelihood of the fisher communities of Lake Victoria. The minimum temperature and maximum temperature, as well as rainfall, have significantly increased. And the increase is not only felt in the data, but is also felt by the people. We came up with gender responsive interventions that could really address fish loss and waste and fish preservation. In any given day, in the banks of Lake Victoria, women are drying the small fish called omena. Women here are sweeping, basically turning the small fish from one side to another. But during heavy rains, they have no way of preserving that fish, of drying that fish. And it's not very hygienic. The birds can eat them, the dogs can eat them. There's dust and sand. So it's not a very good quality product if it's dried that way. Working with the Kenya Marine Research Institute, WellFish was able to manufacture solar tent dryers. It's basically like a greenhouse, and it's covered by a polythene material. Inside that, we have drying racks where women can lay their fish, and within 1.5 to 2 hours, it will dry, and it will be good quality.
In this community, without fishing, we will not survive. That is 100%. I'm very much 100% sure that without fishing, we won't survive. I'm very much grateful for the World Fish for bringing us this dryer. Since it was brought here, it has changed our lives. We used to have the problem of preserving the fish, but now we have the dryer with us. We are very much happy about it.
The self-help groups, they are really excited. They want bigger solar tent dryers. They want to see more of them, you know, and they see a really good potential in terms of drying and processing of their fish and be able to participate in
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, partners. Good afternoon, friends. Today we are very privileged to have a full room. Yeah, I think they underestimated how many of you will turn out. So we are very pleased as CGIAR and our partners who are here to really get a very good audience. My name is Rahma Adam. I work for World Fish. I'm their senior scientist, and I oversee the work of social and economic inclusion at the whole of the World Fish. So today, this afternoon, we have a wonderful session. This session is looking at issues of water governance. It's looking at issues of aquatic food systems. And it's looking at issues on how we can really address climate change as we're trying to really maneuver through using the water, the energy, and other resources, natural resources that we have in growing our crops, in growing the fish, whether in the lakes or in other water bodies that we have been endowed with as stewards of the earth. So it's a very important session. We have our colleague here, Dr. Manohara. Dr. Manohara works for IMI, which is International Water Management Institute. She's a country representative for IMI in Nepal. She's really gonna go provide you a summary of the summary of what IMI and other partners have been able to do in Nepal as they're trying to introduce leadership in solving the trade-offs that we have in water, energy, food, and ecosystems services in Nepal, where herself and the colleagues that they work together with UMI and partners were able to design a leadership program for 6 months for women and men in Nepal who are from different parts of the work, meaning they come from civil society, government, private sector, and academia, who are able to be enriched on how to really think of these trade-offs that exist within the ecosystems that we have as we're trying to grow different crops and managing other resources that we have. So, Dr. Manohara, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Rahma. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Very warm welcome to our last session. I'm Manohara, as Rahma introduced. I work for Nepal, Asia. So today I'm going to share our innovation in terms of lesson and also approach that we adopted or design and apply in terms of strengthening women agency and technical knowledge on the water, energy, food, ecosystem, WIFI nexus. through the Transformative Leadership Program. This is the program, one of the innovation of CGIAR Nexus Gain initiative that we implemented in collaboration with the partner, including Alliance for Biodiversity and also non-state actor partner in Nepal. Next slide, please. Yeah, okay, sir. It's not coming. It's not coming. Sorry for that. It's not coming. Yeah. A bit of the context of this leadership, WIFE, Water is Food Ecosystem WIFE, Nexus Leadership Program. Nexus Gain initiative we carried out in 2022. The capacity, we assessed the capacity need of professional working in the natural resource sector, water, energy, food ecosystem sector. And this study identified that there is a limited capacity to understand, also apply Nexus approach to manage the land, water, food system holistically. And also the study identified that there is a gender-specific barrier the women professional in the sector face in terms of influencing, also making participation in decision-making. So in response to this capacity gap, Nexus Gain initiative organized, co-design different training packages. One of the package is the WIFE leadership courses that is targeted for women professional. So the methodologically, this program is very innovative, we say, because it was need identified, co-design in consultation with the stakeholder and partner, and also participant selection. We focus on mid-career professional, 17 women and 5 men from WIFE sector, state and non-state actor, including academician, in collaboration with their senior manager of the organization they are working for. We adopt the adult learning approach, reflective approach on this process, and we had a 6 building block or session that went to the 6 month, over the 6 month, and timing of the training was based on the women profession and also men who participate in the training. And this training program also really contributed to bringing the men as engaging, as ally for during the course, because they experience challenge of gender when promoting gender transformative approach in their day-to-day life in an organization level. And then this program also considered the project work, like a participant were asked to maintain their own daily diary to reflect on what the lesson learned from each session, what the challenge. So this is the thing. So I don't go in detail, but I want to hear and just show the what the participants talk about this program, the testimony of the participant.
The session was more important because it was the first time when the term WIFE Nexus was introduced to me.
Another striking part was getting connected to mentor. And I feel that it's a very good opportunity to build up connection with professionals.
During this training course, we got opportunity to participate in different workshops related to water, energy. Also, I got opportunity to work in Kamla Basin Water Resource Implementation Action Plan as a group member. So I can apply WIFE Nexus in that action plan also.
Participants from government institutions organized similar sensitization programs for their colleagues. One lecturer from Kathmandu Forestry College went on to lead a sensitization program for faculty members from public and private universities.
हामीले सुरुमा इन्ट्री पोइन्ट चाहिँ हाम्रो यो प्रोग्राम होइन अप्रोच हो है भन्नेबाट सुरु गर्नु पर्यो अनि यो होलिस्टिकली हेर्दाखेरि हाम्रो कन्ट्रीको भिजन छ नि जुन समृद्ध नेपाल सुखी नेपाली भनेको छ नि समृद्धि भने के हो भन्ने र सुखी नेपाली भने को हुन् भन्ने खालको चाहिँ हामीले रिडिफाइन हामीले अझै यसलाई WIFE नेक्ससबाट अझै धेरै डिप डाइभ गरेर एक्सप्लेन गर्न सक्यौं भने अपर्च्युनिटी भिजनबाट हो के किनभने डेभलपमेन्ट ऊर्जाले मात्रै गरे पनि छैन वनले मात्रै गरे पनि भएन खानेपानीले मात्रै गरे पनि भएन डेभलपमेन्ट हुनलाई सेक्टरको डेभलपमेन्ट हुनु पर्यो नि त
Next slide.
The session.
Yeah, we did also external evaluation of the courses last year and also reflection from participant. It shows that that definitely program has contributed to promote cross-sectoral sharing and consultation for organizing, designing program. This is breaking the silo. And second is a participant, you see in the video also, that it must develop confidence, negotiation skill among the participant. It has contributed. And this tool also has been used by other bilateral programs, the WIFI leadership tool like Oxfam Transformative River of South Asia, and going to the from national to sub-national level to organizing training, similar training for local government official. Channel is definitely because individual was selected from each organization. Our lesson learned is that there is a need for developing critical mass of women professionals from a department or organization so that they can move women leadership forward together collectively. At the moment, still power relation is hindering them to influence the decision-making process. If they have many people within organization train on this tool, then there will be some chances influence. And sustainability, definitely financial resource, there is a demand, and also the institutionalization of the package, because this program was designed, co-designed with the non-state actor, how to institutionalize this in a government process. Definitely this program also contributed to short-term mentoring, but our lesson is that there should be a long-term mentoring program for the professional who are trained on Nexus, because they face still the challenge at household, society, workplace, so that make them sometimes leave behind the, the mental, also some sort of emotional challenge to deal with. So long-term mentorship is required. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Manohara, for very powerful knowledge that you have shared with us about the WEFI tool. And I think for me, the WEFI tool, as I've been hearing a lot from the Nexus Gain, is really a powerful tool as we are trying to solve these structural bottlenecks, in the midst of climate change, and the resources that are scarce, the trade-offs that exist between water, energy, food, and ecosystems. So trying to solve those structural problems through capacity building. Capacity building is a powerful tool to train people who are at the higher up, especially in the governance, to address issues of policy effectiveness, legislation, and governance of the whole water ecosystem services. So thank you very much, Manohara. And now I'm going to switch a little bit. I'm going to talk about the work that WorldFish has done with partners from local university here, Muranga University of Technology, also with the riparian counties, the county government that we have in the Lake Victoria Zone region here in Kenya, which are the Homa Bay and Migori. And this work connects very well with Dr. Manohara's work as we are trying to solve this problem of climate change. So basically what we were trying to do in this study, and we also provided solution, is to understand what are the impacts of climate change in the livelihoods of the fisher communities using one of the great lakes we have here in Africa, Lake Victoria, as an entry point. And what solutions can we really find? So this work was done in Kenya. Maybe you go the second slide kindly. Oh, I can. So Lake Victoria supports a lot of fishermen, about 200 fishermen, but it's more than the fishermen that it supports. There are a lot of people who depend on it directly or indirectly. The recent data shows about 50 million people across Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda depend on it for water, for food, among other necessities that they get from the lake. For Kenya, it is able to provide about 1%, close to 1% of the GDP. And Lake Victoria has undergone a lot of stresses and, ecological changes over the past couple of years. And these stresses have really been contributed mostly to climate change and other stresses that are non-climatic. And as WorldFish, this was actually a demand-driven work where the chief of staff of Homa Bay, who saw one of our leads, actually Inga, among others who attended COP, and said, we really need to look at the fisher communities of Lake Victoria and how they are suffering and how you can really help. So design your programs, you know, your science initiative, science program, to really think of the Great Lakes, especially Lake Victoria. So it was demand driven, which is very good. So WellFish in 2023, early, we designed a study with the local university to really understand the impacts of climate change to the livelihoods, with a heavy gender lens into it. And what we were able to find, let me go quickly. We were able to use, structured questionnaire, quantitative and qualitative, sex disaggregated data. And as we are analyzing the data of Homa Bay and Migori, we use the Livelihood Vulnerability Index, which is one of the IPCC's combined tool, Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, looking at exposure, sensitivity, and adaptive capacity of the population. So some of the findings, which were you really don't need a scientist to see that there is change, is to be able to see those infrastructural destruction. So this is one of the hotel, which used to be very far off from the lake. But now if you go there, a huge part of it has submerged in the water. And you could see a lot of pollution in the lake shore, improper disposal of solid waste, among others. So as scientists, we are not convinced by what we are seeing. We said, okay, let's work with the Kenya Meteorological Station here, the data. What data do they have? They were generous to provide us data from 1982 till 2022. That's about what, 42 years plus a bit, couple of months. And this data, when we were running it, we're really able to see that there is an increase in minimum temperature and rainfall, which was significantly over the past several years. So climate change is real. And then we were saying, okay, maybe let's also go using Likert scale with our data and ask the people in terms of the perception of rainfall and temperature. And most of them in Migori and Homa Bay County say, yes, there's been an increase in annual temperature and also an increase in rainfall over the past 2 years. And this has caused a lot of, problems. First of all, it has resulted in decrease in fish stocks that they used to harvest as compared to the previous years. This decrease in fish stock has caused increase in prices of fish. Now, who is affected there? Of course, a lot of people will be affected, but women who are in the selling and trading of fish are heavily affected, because as they want to get the fish from the fishermen, they are even forced to enter into a transactional relationship. Sex for fish, fish for sex, causing a lot of, infectious disease numbers to increase in these riparian counties. But not only that, it has also caused stress and anxiety within the fisher folks community. And we are seeing also the youth who are facing a lot of maladies like alcoholism, drugs, and all that because of lack of job opportunities, and so many other forces that are really increasing household vulnerability and poverty. So what did WellFish do? In terms of solutions, so we are right into the solution now quickly. WellFish was working hard with Kenya Marine Research Institute, KEMFRI, Kenya Marine Fisheries Research Institute, where we designed solar tent dryers. This is an immediate response. We also able to procure solar freezers, smoking kiln, fish displaying boxes in Homa Bay and Migori County for the women, which costed about close to 60,000 by now, and able to serve about, close to 3,000 women and men beneficiary in the sector. And in terms of the medium term, we started with the biggest riparian county. They asked us to help them develop the policy for fisheries and aquaculture, with a good gender sensitive lens into the policy. Last year, we worked hard with one of the lawyers from the county to develop the policy. So this year, come next month, it will be presented to the County Assembly of Homa Bay for them to make any amendments and to vote for it for it to be, institutionalized. This is one of the very good achievements for us as World Fish. And also working to develop fish hatcheries and multiplication sites with the counties, establishment of fish safety and quality infrastructure, and issues of governance accountability, which are ongoing. And as we move along the through the gender impact platform, they were also able to support us to understand issues of collective agency, the power of collective agency for the women self-help group and youth self-help group who are in the fish processing and trading. So this is the study that we have completed last year with results to be shared another time. Lastly, so this work actually has really laid the stage for us as we move into this big science program this year, which is Sustainable Animal and Aquatic Food System Science Program and the Gender Accelerator to expand the work not only in Kenya, but also Uganda and Tanzania, looking at issues of financial inclusion for the fisher communities, among others. And there are several other achievements that I've noted. But one of the challenges that we are trying to address is the issue of sustainability of these technical solutions that we've provided. How could they be sustainable? How could the fisher community be able to, repair when they break, even get more for themselves? And that we are working with the Africa Center for Technology to really understand the science behind it and business model so that we can be able to run with it. So thank you. And without further ado, because we went a bit over time, I would like to welcome our panelists for this session. We are very privileged to have Dr. Do you mind showing the slides with us? Dr. Nancy, Dr. Laibuni, actually needs to be corrected, Dr. Nancy Laibuni, who is coming from the Office of the President here in Kenya. She's an advisor there, working for the the Council of Economic Advisor. She has been working with us at CG in several different arenas, including working with IFPRI in policy, and we are privileged to have her to share her words of wisdom on how we can address these issues of water governance. We also have Professor Dorothy Amwata, who is a very good collaborator in these issues of aquatic food system. She's the Dean of the College of Agricultural Sciences and Environmental Sciences at Murang'a University of Technology here in Kenya. We also are privileged. Lucy Obungu is not with us, but we have John. Please, John Kamunya, come for us, who is the Assistant Director of Fisheries and Blue Economy for the Ministry of Mining, Fisheries and Blue Economy here in Kenya from the State Department of Fisheries and Blue Economy. A lot of title there. Okay. Yeah, I would like to correct John Kwanyangicho, the last name. Kwanyangicho. Okay. I think this is a wonderful panel that we have here to be able to digest what Dr. Manohara has shared with us from Nepal and what I've shared with you for the Lake Victoria. Maybe I will start with Dr. Nancy Laibuni, please. So from where you sit, Dr. Nancy, what steps do you think need to be taken to ensure that women, youth have a stake in the water, land, and food system governance? Along the same lines, what do you see as leadership barriers and support that are needed basically to empower women to be able to engage meaningfully and successfully in the water and land food system sectors?
Thank you for inviting us to participate in this panel. We must appreciate and recognize that the youth and women constitute our largest share of the population in Kenya. And that said, it means that we have to put a special emphasis towards ensuring that we meet their unique needs. We also recognize that they have very distinct, very different needs. And just to give credence to the current government, we have actually a Women's Rights Office that is geared towards looking at the special interests that are are unique to women. We also have had very many initiatives around the youth, and specifically noting that the youth are very interested in the digital superhighway. And we have provided for them what we are calling digital hubs at the ward level. So we are giving them opportunities to interact with technology, to provide for them Wi-Fi so that we open them up to the rest of the world. That said, we recognize that also they are very entrepreneurial in nature. We have put initiatives around our TVETAs, or technical and vocational education training institutes, where we are having what we are calling incubation centers at different areas. So if you go to the western side, if you go to the places where there are hubs, we have fisher folk or incubation centers for the fisher folk. We have incubation centers for different agroecological or agro-processing technologies for the youth and for women. And then further, we go further and have incubation hubs. So we are working together both with the universities. And I'm sure if you go around the universities, you'll find that most of them now have innovation hubs. We have the Kenya Innovation Center also, who is running quite a number of a few innovation hubs that we are supporting the youth, and even Strathmore University. So in a nutshell, to say is that we have provided a platform for the youth, and that is through our various state agencies. We have also provided and supported the Ministry of Blue Economy. A colleague will tell us. They have been having what they're calling beach management units. They have provided them with finances, training, putting them together in groups. I'm sure you'll expand further on that. But basically what we are saying, that we recognize this is a unique cohort. No youth is the same across the country. No woman is the same. And therefore, we have tailored programs together with our different institutions of learning at all levels. And specifically at the ward levels, we have provided infrastructure to enable us as a government, because we provide an enabling environment, to open up the world to the youth. I would like also to report, I'm sure the Ministry of Maritime is here. We have actually youth we have sent to train in countries like Indonesia, who have very expensive, very modern ways of managing their marine ecosystem. So I think it's to say that we have put in place infrastructure, institutions, policies adequate to ensure we cater for these unique and diverse groups that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nancy. Now we will move to Professor Dorothy Amwata. From what we have heard in Nepal, which I think is very interesting, what do you think we can do building in this work of leadership program of water, energy, food, and ecosystem program? How can such kind of programs be applied in African countries to promote women's leadership in this sector?
Thank you very much, Dr. Rama, and I want to add my voice in thanking the organizers for creating this forum so that we are able to share together on issues of food, water, land, and ecosystem nexus. Learning from what the study that has been done in Nepal, we realized that apart from just strengthening the leadership and also on issues of negotiation skills, it creates a platform for champions in terms of technical skills, use of tools like we have seen in the presentation, and that this can be used also to implement and support decision-making in these particular areas. Now, going to what can be done in Africa, one is to do tailor-made capacity building initiatives, like we have seen with the professionals. And I'm happy here to see Dr. Nancy, who is the director for the award. I'm part of the mentorship for that award, where we are having women professionals in agriculture being supported in their various areas. And this is going a long way in really bringing professionals to speed, to connect them to mentors, connect them to professionals, especially for the young and emerging leaders. So as we think about training programs, they need to be tailor-made to address the specific and context needs of this particular group of women leaders. In addition to that, we also have other programs that have supported online courses, boot camps, summer schools. Of course, you had here, it's not just about the professionals, also even farmers are professionals. And we're having field schools for the farmers. And I know many of the counties have been doing this through the support of the government, where different extension officers, they can interact. And I will just give an example of a model. And I'm also happy that I've been able to hear about Alliance Biodiversity SIAT. They have supported a model where there's a kind of tripartite kind of partnership between research, farmers, extension officers, together with professionals, so that you're able to demonstrate, you're able to give research, and the private sector are able to implement these programs in support of the science that has come out. In addition to that, it's also important that we strengthen community-based leadership models. The people at local level, all of us here, we are lucky, we are professionals. But remember back at home in the village where we have the rural women, they do not have that platform. So it will be very, very important that we create these leadership models so that they're also able to have those platforms, and together we are going to make a difference in this nexus. 3 is the cross-sectoral collaboration. This is very, very important. Remember, from Nepal study, they have shown that there's water, there's agriculture, there's environment, many other stakeholders and actors. If they're able to work together, then we are going to be able to see the overlaps, what are the synergies, and together we are going to enhance efficiency, even in terms of resource use, mentorship, and networking. And you've heard it here from the testimony that they have been able to connect with professionals. And I can give a testimony of the award program. Dr. Nancy, if you allow me, Dr. Susan, sorry. Yes, in the award program, women, researchers, professionals in agriculture, they are linking up even to people they admire. And through that, they're able to have one-on-one coaching, which is really a plus. And this is something that can be taken up and upscaled in terms of the program. Issue of policy and advocacy, this is very, very critical. In research, we do a lot of research, we disseminate the information, but we now need to move it a notch higher to make sure that now it has an impact in terms of policy, in terms of advocacy, so that different actors are informed and know what is our role in this particular kind of setting. And lastly is about monitoring and evaluation. Let's build on the impact of these programs and initiatives, their outcome, the feedback, because it will inform the next level of engagement, like now in the next phase of the CGI science impact. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, very, very powerful. I mean, you have taken us from the up, to the grassroots, how we should be thinking of community. You have also taken up to the middle. You have taken us everywhere. That's very good. Now, to the ministry here, the pleasure to have John Kwanyangicho. Maybe you could help us to understand what role does government institutions such as yours in the ministries of mining, fisheries, and blue economy can play to ensure that women and youth have the needed resources to work and thrive in the blue economy sector or fisheries sector, or even just the water that we have in inland fisheries. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Daktari, and thank you very much, the organizers, for considering to invite our ministry to participate in this panel. First of all, we need to levelize the playing field, the fisheries playing field. Now, to do that, we need to do legal and policy reforms. Now, we need to enforce gender-inclusive policies in fisheries governance. For example, my colleague was talking about the beach management units. How do we enhance women representation at the beach management units? How do we enhance women issues in issuance of licensing, and how do we ensure that women access the fish landing sites? In Kenya, everything is male-dominated, especially our fisheries sector, where fishing is done by men, and then from the fishing, we now have women taking care of trade, taking care of mini processing and the rest. But still, there are conditions or situations where they are not allowed to access the fish landing sites. There are issues where in the beach management units, that is the core management framework that we have, they are not represented at the committee levels. So we need that field to be levelized so that women also perform at equal level as men. So that is the first thing that we need to do. We need to carry out the policy and legal reforms. Number two, they are involved in marketing, but still we need to reform the sector. We need to enhance market access and value chain development. What we need to do there is create women-led cooperatives to increase their bargaining power. We need to connect them to the niche markets. We need to connect them with the urban markets. We need to open the European markets, for our women. So we also need to partner in the development of infrastructure like the cold storage facilities that they need to enhance and access the local market. Another thing that we also need to do is the technological and infrastructural support. We have the problem of climate change. Then we ensure that we subsidize climate resilient technologies like the solar powered dryers, like the energy efficient smoking kilns, like the water purifiers to facilitate the safe processing of fish. So those are some of the things that we need to do. Another thing also that we need to do is access to finance, access to credits. We have programs. We have the microfinance institutions, but they are not tailored. They are not women or they are not gender specific. So we need to work and establish women-specific finance criteria where they can access credit and invest in fisheries-related activities. The things that I mentioned, like the solar dryers, so that the women can be able to purchase on their own the solar dryers, the energy-efficient smoking kilns, and the rest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, feel free to clap. Yeah. So now we are back to you, Dr. Nancy. As an economist, what strategies do you think they are there to make sure that youth are aspiring and have the capability to be involved in agriculture and aquatic food systems, and see it as an avenue for employment?
Thank you. I see an opportunity for the youth to be engaged, but I see a big opportunity for us to have transdisciplinary engagements with the youth. We have to make the fisheries sector more attractive. As my colleague has rightly put it, if you go to the beach management units, for instance, you'll find that there are men who go out to fish because fishing is done at night. So that already excludes the women and also already segments which kind of youth are involved because the age becomes important when it has to be the young men. So what we are saying and what we have done together with the ministry, we have an enabling policy environment, both in the Ministry of Agriculture, because fisheries is within agriculture. They have several programs. We have what we're calling Enable Youth. We have a Nyota program. There are several programs between fisheries, blue economy, Ministry of Cooperatives and State Department of Cooperatives, and State Department of Small and Medium Enterprises. So we can say as a government, we have provided the infrastructure and we have catered for the unique needs of our young people. But as stakeholders in the fisheries sector, we need to go a step further. What kind of technology, how are we leveraging to build the capacity of these young men who go out fishing to have modern fishing boats, modern fishing gear? So it is not just the policy side. As Kenya, we can say we are good at doing policy. So we do have the policy infrastructure currently as we speak. We need the second step. We increase and enable the young people by giving them access to tools, to information, and to financing, as already rightfully put. We have programs within government, for instance, our Financial Inclusion Fund, which is the Hustler Fund. We have been able to have a personal loan product, we have a bridging product, we have a group product. There is a reform happening in the Women Fund and the Youth Fund on the WESO Fund, but nonetheless, the government cannot have everything. So even as development partners, we need to see how we structure, and it's not just keeping fisheries as a rudimentary sector. We improve the gear, we improve the boats, we improve the landing sites as we input, add technology, add cold storage, yeah? And all this, we have done the numbers together with our colleagues and realize that fisheries is one of the most profitable business, and the payback period is within 6 months. So it means that if we tool our young people with the business skills, financial literacy, give them accelerator and incubation programs, these are people who will be independent. So from a policy perspective, just to say again, we have laid the proper infrastructure. What we need is the development partners to work together and have a transdisciplinary cohort of people. There's also social issues that are affecting our fisher folk that are very critical, that affect different for men, different for the women, and different for the youth. So let us think about it as a holistic sector with having a climate lens. That's what I think I can say. Thank you.
Very good, Dr. Nancy, as always. And you continue to highlight that the policies are there. Now we need to go to work to show the good outcome for our youth and also for our women. So now we are back to you, Professor. With your heart working at educational institution, how can we make sure the future generation, especially women, are empowered to take leadership roles in the food, land, and water systems? And as we all know, there are trade-offs for that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rama. That is really exciting. Coming from an education institution, that is a university, and the role of university is really to train, to do research, to support policy, and also for community outreach. One, it is important to have market-driven curricula in the different institutions. And to do this, you need partnership with the industry, with the community, actually all actors in the different fields. This is very, very important so that the graduates that you channel out be graduates that are able to address societal issues. And for you to do that, it is very important that we revamp the existing curricula so that they're able also to emphasize and look at issues of leadership and women, because you find that, for example, if you have a curriculum on environment, water, there must be a unit or units based on the needs assessment that brings in the aspect of gender and that particular area of action. Two, it is important that we infuse the different aspects of leadership. We might not be able to integrate everything in the curriculum, but we need to do retooling. There are short courses that can be done with the respective students to be able to understand issues of leadership, governance with respect to women. Even those who are already practicing, like professionals, like women in agriculture, women in water, it is good. There are emerging issues all the time. Like now we're talking about climate change, and it is here to stay. So for those who were trained a long time ago, probably they did not have that opportunity to have climate change integrated in their curriculum. But there are short courses that can be done, which are tailor-made to be able to address those gaps. Two, issue of leadership training and mentorship is very, very important. Linking up the emerging young professionals together with those who are already in the field. And this can be done at different fora. One, through exchange programs for both staff and students. Two, in terms of visiting scholars. And also you can have joint collaboration in terms of projects and programs, because all of us have an opportunity to deliver, especially for interdisciplinary studies. so that you're able to work together as a team to avoid working in silos like the different sectors have been doing. So if we build on that, that would really be important. Peer networking is also key. Youths, there are youths who have made it. There are professionals who are doing very well. How do you pair them up so that they're able to team up, they learn from each other, and they benefit from the expertise of one another? Another issue is experiential or hands-on learning. This is where many institutions are not getting it right. Theory, because of lack of resources, is a big, big challenge. You find that you are doing agriculture, you are doing water or environment course, but you've never stepped into a lab or an institution. So you go to work, you are put in a lab to work, and you cannot do it. Why? You did not have hands-on experience. So hands-on is very, very critical. As we think about bridging this nexus, we also ensure that we have the laboratories, we have the practical fields where both not only students, but also other practitioners, including the extension officers, they can also be able to learn from this hands-on experience. I talked about policy engagement and outreach. This is very important, especially for the leadership of women. Many a times, they do not have that platform to engage. But if they are taken through training, they have tools, they have the short courses or awareness, they'll be able to engage effectively so that they also raise issues that affect them. And lastly is institutional support. And I want to really echo this because this is the reason why many women are not taking up opportunities. Like, for example, when you go abroad, you have a family, you have to make a decision. If you cannot get a scholarship that covers you with your child, it means that you are not able to go. So when you look through institutional support, issues of scholarship need to take care of the unique needs of the women, especially if they are families, they need to be integrated so that they're able to concentrate when they go even for further studies. So lastly is the technology, which has been outlined. Now we are in a digital era. We really need to make use of the technology because with technology, you can have mentors from across the world and have that platform to share your experiences. I know even if the lady from Nepal was not here today, she could still share with us her experience wherever she is. So we need to really leverage on this. And even as a community of practice, that we keep on building these professionals, especially the women leaders in the nexus of food, water, energy, and ecosystems. Thank you.
Wow. Wow, wow. Haven't we learned today? Very good, very good. I think our session has come to an end. We've gone a bit over time, but just one question from the room. I want you to participate. Just one. Yeah, kindly.
So my name is Charity Juma. I work with the Alliance, but I'm also a farmer, a scientist, a consumer, a lady from this country. They say if there's any challenge, women and youth and children, they suffer double the tragedy. So I'm very happy that I'm a Kenyan and the panelists are all Kenyan and they're government representatives. So I would like for them to comment on issues of bad governance and also the erratic policies that eventually affect our livelihoods. Do they advise the government in regards to how bad it affects families, women, children, and just our lives? Thank you.
Wow, wow, good, good. Who wants to start us off? Okay.
Thank you very much for the wonderful.
1 minute. We only have 1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute.
So
okay,
maybe you divide it also with Dr. Nancy.
I just want to explain the process of policy formulation. It really has to start from the ground. We identify the problem from the ground, then it is upscaled or upwards. Now, once we have done the policy, we take it back to the people and they tell us, is this policy responsive to our needs? So it is not possible that as government we may have a bad policy, but should it happen that there are challenges, then policies are time-bound, time-specific, 5 years, then we review. So that is what I can say. It is not really possible because of the public participation and the others. Thank you.
Just to add, you have asked that these policies, do they know how they affect the local people or people at the grassroots? I want to believe these policy makers also come from communities, isn't it? And they see really what the impact of those policies are. And as we have said, policies can be good, but the issue is implementation. So it's not about bad policies by the government, but how do we implement them based on what has been stipulated.
Thank you. I think we don't want to eat other people's time, but we can continue the conversation. This is very good. You have sparked a lot of interest from the audience that we have, and you're a very good audience today. We are really pleasure to have you here. So we'll continue. We have them here. We have their contacts. Please find them as we finish. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's give a better clap since you had tea. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rama, and thank you to our panelists. My name is Nathan Rono, and we are going to move quickly into the next session. And I'm happy to tell you that this panel is standing between you and lunch. Or is it past lunch already? But happy that you had some tea. So we are going to have a quick conversation with these great panelists. First off, we'll have Dr. Susan Carrier, who's the Director for African Women in Agricultural Research and Development Award. Welcome, Dr. Susan. Round of applause. And then we'll also have in this panel, I'm sure you've seen this panelist in the previous session, Annette Mulema, who's the Senior Program Officer at IDRC. Round of applause for Annette. Welcome, Annette. And finally, or last but not least, this is going to be a short and sweet conversation, as I said. So we're going to have Jacqueline Makoha, who's the Director in the State Department for Gender and Affirmative Action in the government of Kenya. So you see, we have everyone represented in this panel. Welcome. Jacqueline, round of applause. Thank you for switching this off. And maybe as we start this panel, I want to also acknowledge the people joining us online. We see your comments, and I'll just read some of the comments at the end of this panel. But thank you so much, Dr. Susan, Annette, and Jacqueline for joining. And good to see all of you. We've had a lot from the research space. And so now we move into action. How do we take this research and how do we translate it to action? And I'd love to start by reading a comment that we had in one of our Menti sessions today, just very quickly, because I thought this would shape this conversation, and it's also very important. And if you're the one who said this, just give me a ahoo or something like that. Real transformation requires discomfort, challenging power, centering excluded voices, and embracing inclusion, not as a box to tick, but as a core strategy for meaningful change. Isn't that deep? Okay, let's give a snap for that. A snap. Thank you very much. And so, Dr. Susan, I'll start with you. So in our quest to move from research to action, we also need to, listen to the voices of women and young people. And so my question to you is, how can we ensure that the voices of women and others are heard and that they actually influence? There's a difference between hearing and listening. So hearing is, yeah, we've heard you, and then the listening is actually putting these voices into decision making. How can we ensure that that happens?
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. And, one of the biggest challenges is how we place women in positions of power or leadership, and then we don't prepare them for that journey. We don't prepare them to be heard. We don't prepare them to speak up in a way that they can be heard. And so I think one of the most important things is that kind of training that is needed. And at award, the African Women in Agriculture Research and Development, we have spent many years building the skills, leadership of African women in science so that they're able to speak and speak with influence and speak so that they can convince. And I remember attending very recently, I'll be very brief, I know we are running out of time.
Yes, I'll be looking at you.
Attending one of the trainings that, a leadership training for one of our new fellowships. And the first thing I thought, which was really interesting, is when the women had to come out to give feedback, they said, I have to stand up with my chest out because I'm a leader. You know, sometimes it's how you look when you're talking, yeah, so that you can hold your space and people don't start to encroach on your space. So what we do is we've been developing these training materials that, first of all, are about being more assertive, saying, no, stop, I'm still talking. It's very simple things, how to give feedback, but also how to receive it, how to have emotional intelligence. So you can read a room and know how to come in and where you should come in, and then also how to pitch your work. How, if you know, and we practice this a lot because many of our fellows are scientists. They need to learn how to break down that complex science into a very simple 2-minute pitch. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that response. A round of applause for that. Oh, we said we are snapping for this session, huh? This is the cold session. We just snap. Anyway, thank you so much, Dr. Karia, for that. And moving on, I'll skip you, Annette, for now, and then I'll come back to you. Let me go to Jacqueline. Moving on from hearing the voices of women and young people, we also have heard about policies, but let's come back to policies again. Based on today's discussions, what policy actions would you prioritize to strengthen gender equality in food systems? What policy actions should we prioritize?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And even just from the previous panel, you've heard that Kenya in this instance has a very elaborate policy framework. However, I know, and we all know, that in terms of implementation, there are gaps. And also just referencing our earlier session where we were talking about the maps, in terms of developing those maps, one of the critical gaps was data. So I think one of the very key actions is to move to give direction in terms of how data should be presented from our various institutions. Because I mentioned earlier that data information informs policies, and therefore if we have skewed data or wrong data or inadequate data, then we don't have policies that speak to the realities of the populations. So I think investment in data, and here government partnering with research institutions to get real-time data to inform the policies will go quite a long way. And then also the issue of inter-sectoral collaboration, I think very important, because there's quite some interrelatedness between, like now when you talk about agriculture, water, energy, food security, there are so many institutions that are involved, both state and non-state. So I think there needs to be a level of coherence across board at policy, but also extending to programmatic levels, that then we have a wholesome approach in addressing these issues. And lastly,
in
I
30
think
seconds.
Yes, the issue of resources, I know it's a big issue, and the last speakers also addressed themselves to the same. I know there are various funds or finance platforms, both within government and outside. I think sensitization, awareness creation on these funds, very important, so that then we create those linkages, so that then accessibility is the funds are accessible to especially the vulnerable, among whom are women and the youth. Thank you.
Indeed. Oh, sorry, we are not doing a round of applause, a round of snaps. Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for that response, and glad that you mentioned or talked about resources. And we have Dr. Annette Mulema here with us from IDRC. So nice segue to ask about resources from Dr. Mulema. So what commitments do we then need to see, or what shifts in donor practices do we need to see to support gender transformative interventions from your end?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I hate her because she put me on the spot.
I'm glad we jumped to her first before you.
Yeah, anyway, maybe I'll speak actually from the lens of IDRC, what we've been trying to do to make sure that we get to this level. Of course, we've been funding a lot of gender sensitive, responsive, in projects. And now we are trying to challenge ourselves, to get to the end of this continuum, to be transformative. And we've set some targets, and I think we have like 20%, But the challenge is that when we get these proposals, it's rare that we get proposals that actually speak to transformation, and even those that come in are normally weak, But what I'm trying to say is that I think we need to be deliberate or intentional. And I think many donor agencies are getting into that space to really set targets for that and be intentional to fund transformative projects. And I think the other element is about who we fund, because that is very, very critical. Many times we look for big, large organizations that can absorb a certain amount of funding, and we're leaving out the grassroots organizations, women's rights organizations that actually also have the mandate to do this kind of research that moves into policy, they move the needle and they make a lot of noise, The researchers sometimes, we don't make noise. We make noise maybe because of through the publications, but you need people who can go to the media, and challenge governments, hold people accountable, So we need to get more money down there to these grassroots organizations. And if at all they can't absorb this money, how can they partner with larger institutions, Yeah, so this decolonizing the way we fund will be very important. And maybe lastly, really investing in capacity development. We want to do transformative research, but we have the capacities to do that, I think we need to build capacities of whoever wants to do this, to do it well.
Indeed. Thank you so much for that crisp response. Yeah, let's do a round of snaps. Wow. This is the cool session in the CGIAR Science Week. Anyway, I see we have, I'll just do one last question from all of you. This is for all of you. I would want to hear one concrete next step for us to connect research-driven innovations to policy and practice. And this I'm asking in terms of how we can create lasting solutions or have lasting solutions to the challenges that we've had today. So one concrete step that you think we should take? I know we have so many steps we need to take that you would answer. And maybe Dr. Annette, we can start with you. One concrete step.
Yeah, I think one concrete step probably is, I think we need to find the right messenger and speak with one voice. Because we people doing gender research, I think, are also very much siloed, You got the Ministry of Gender, the other day, the other person goes, the other day, and that we're communicating different things, I think, can we organize ourselves and have the right messenger?
Have the right messenger. Let's snap for that. I hope there were people of the media in the house, they're also messengers, right? Yeah, they can take the message fine, right? And so, of course, back to you, Jacqueline. What do you think is the one concrete next step for us to take after this session?
At the risk of sounding repetitive, collaboration. I think collaboration is very important. I know that governments have their national research institutions, but I know also the private sector has a very strong research component that can complement government efforts for real-time data collaboration.
Collaboration. So we came from speaking with one voice, and there's some synergy in that, speaking with one voice, and then we collaborate together. I wonder what wise words Dr. Susan has for us, but first of all, let's do the snap for Jacqueline. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to go back with what Annette said, that we really need to build capacity of women farmers so that they understand the issues, so that they're able to actually be heard and that their voices can be heard in policy processes. Thank you.
Wow, those are deep things, eh? Let's do a round of snap. Thank you very much for those responses. And seeing as we have 2 minutes, I will take one question. Oh yeah, there was that hand went up very fast. And I know that you have a microphone there. Please introduce yourself and shoot the question in 30 seconds. Just turn the microphone on. Okay, let's do this quickly. This is faster.
My name is Nancy, and my work is in sustainability and impact measurement. And I would like you in the next sessions or in the next meetings, you include the youth, because as we can see, the challenges are cutting across. So we need to see a youth in that seat next time.
Nancy, should we create, I think we can create a seat right now. But thank you very much. I think that deserves like a big snapper. Okay, one last short question, but we've taken note of that. And yeah, let me just give it to a youth, Professor Dorothy. Oh, you are youth at heart.
I would really wish to ask this question when I'm there.
Okay, but in 30 seconds?
Yeah.
A round of snaps for her.
Oh, we're snapping.
Yeah, we're not clapping. Yeah, we're snapping.
Wow. Why have you forgotten us? So, in what ways do our current social system unintentionally or intentionally exclude persons with disabilities? And how can we redesign these systems to ensure full and equal participation for all? Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Ruth Machocho. I'm coming from an organization called Elite Ability Foundation Africa. I'm the vision bearer. I'm a person with disability acquired case. So I was involved in an accident. And from there, I chose to stand with the person's disability because I'm wearing the shoe. This is an international event. No sign language interpreter. Oh. I'm feeling so bad.
This is good feedback. Thank you so much. And raising big questions on inclusion, huh? Raising big questions on inclusion. I don't know who will take that question quickly. Someone? Okay.
Okay. In terms of the organization of the whole forum, I think I don't have a comment because I'm not an organizer, but I just to indicate that for us as the ministry responsible for gender, I think I earlier mentioned that even as we disaggregate our data, we must go a step further to disaggregate, or rather to appreciate that, for instance, when you're looking at women as a group, they're not homogeneous. So in our initiatives and in our policy development, we make deliberate efforts to, in terms of public participation, which is a requirement by government, we look at all those different components. So even in our current development of our National Gender and Climate Change Action Plan, we have a strong representation of disability institutions or representatives in that process, so that the lived realities of persons with disabilities are featured in that in that national document. So apologies for feeling that way, but I hope it was not intentional.
It's a learning, yeah, it's a learning journey. Thank you so much for the candid feedback from both speakers. I think we've run out of time, but I encourage you to approach our speakers and ask your questions after the session. But a round of snaps for Susan Carrier, Annette Malema, and Jacqueline Makoha. Thank you so much, and please have your seats. All right. So we are almost closing this, and very quickly, our online audience, you said we will not forget you. So just 2 comments from online, and I see you, Douglas Ouma. You said how to be inclusive, we need to be intentional to have the youth, vulnerable persons, women in spaces for policy development and implementation, and prepare them on how to ask policy questions and prepare policy innovations projects for those questions. So thank you so much for your comments, Douglas Ouma. And Sankura says gender data allows to convince policymakers from data to evidence and to policy. Thank you very much for indulging us in this session. A round of snaps for all of you, for yourselves. And very quickly, we will want to do one quick Menti and then we close this. So let's see what our question for the Menti is. Prepare your phones or your smart devices. You know, some are not just phones, they are devices, huh? Technological devices, okay. So it's the same code that we used before. So if you are still logged in, no need to log out. So in 1 to 3 words, okay, that's not the one. Okay, this is a question. What are your greatest takeaways from today's session? And I see there's an index 1 here. You know, index 1 is like that top student already with the answer before the question. Okay, use the code here again. I promise this will take 2 minutes just, and then we are closing. Okay, I am blocking the code, wow. So we're good? We're good? Okay, let's go to the question. What are your greatest takeaways from today's session? It's question 3 on the Menti link. Greatest, okay, since index 1 was here before us, that transformation demands comfort. Today's session reminded me that real change doesn't come from consensus, and then it disappeared. It comes from courage. I wonder who did that comment, you know, way before the session ended. I'd like to acknowledge your effort by giving you a pin. Okay, they're not here. The importance of context-specific co-design, and then how gender transformative approaches can bring meaningful change and impact. Wow. Anyone else? Any more takers? Any more takers that are coming in? We need to sprinkle or bundle these sessions throughout the Science Week. Good comment. And as we get 2 more comments, I want to invite Els Lecouteur for the closing remarks. 2 last comments. Inclusivity should never be an afterthought. It should be, you know, very intentional as we've been challenged. Yeah, thank you. Okay, Els, please, with the closing remarks. Thank you so much for joining us. Els.
Thank you. So, first, thank you, all of you, the speakers, the panelists, the audience, for great contributions, great questions. I was inspired by this session. Thank you very much. I'll answer the question from the Mentimeter in person here. I have that privilege now. What are my main takeaways? I think, or something I sort of learned is, let's use these food systems as an entry point for transformative change. Toward more equal societies, more equal opportunities in food systems, and actually then higher productivity, sustainable food systems. So that's something that I take away from this session. Another takeaway is gender and inclusion is relational. That's why we are including not only women, but men, boys, girls, community leaders, and that's what you need. But we need the voice and the influence of women, of youth, of people with disabilities, other and marginalized group, indigenous communities in that space as well. And those voices and influence needs support and strengthening with some gender transformative ways as well. And then something that I think Annette was alluding to is when you then have that community conversations about it, you often get an aha moment. It's like, oh, some people are not benefiting or are suffering. And if we do this differently, actually we can all benefit. So I think that's also something I take away. And then to close is a call for engagement and action. Susan said it in the beginning, let's invest. Whoever you are you a farmer, are you a researcher, are you a policymaker, are you a donor, are you a private sector person, let's invest in really understanding and seeing those root causes for inequality and exclusion, and then really work on some transformative change so that we have then food systems that actually where everybody can benefit and everyone can thrive. And with that, thank you very much. And we close the session here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you received some postcards, and we hope to see you in the gender conference in October in Cape Town, South Africa. So if you need more information, there are postcards on this table. Please grab one and spread the message. All right. Thank you so much and goodbye.